Okay, welcome everyone. Let me know if you hear me, please. Please let me know if you hear me. Sounds like that might be working. Okay, so welcome in. I want to say hello to everyone coming in. If you're in the lurker crew, please join the chat. It's nice for you in the chat. I will say hello to those of you who are here, and then we'll get rolling. There's a lot to do. I have an immense amount of presentation to pull up onto the screen, so that's going to take me a moment here, and then we'll welcome our guest in. So first of all, let me see if we can get this loaded here. All right, so I'm going to back this up and say hello to those who are here. So I'd like to say hello to, let's see, Heather Brown, Dean Johnson, Tracy Fleetwood, Donnie, Granny D, Phoenix, the Royal We. Good to see you guys for Baby Daddy. Let's see if I got this here. Okay, Sleuthy Goosey. Sleuthy Goosey, welcome in. And that did not work, so okay, I'll be struggling with this. Sleuthy Goosey. Woman Doing. JoJo. Bonnie Kokenauer. Bobby Smith. Jamie. Untamable. Adrian. Kayla. Ivapophis. Dean Johnson. Did I already say your name? Four Pits. K. And Recoil, Tulane, Noe Amos, Tammy McCrae, Digital, Gina Bodette, Rebecca Ann, 1965, True Justice, Captain Underpants, Connie Williams, 12 Cats. All right, and if I missed anyone, just why don't you shout me out right now, and I'll go ahead and make sure I don't want to miss anyone. So we'll do it that way. All right, now try to get this again. Oh, Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Got Lisa. All right, I think I got this ready now. Linda K. Johnson. Hello, Linda K. All right, anyone else that wants to be greeted, join the chat immediately and we'll get you started. All right, so you guys are welcome in. It's a beautiful Sunday here. Sunday evening for us. Some of you may be Saturday or Monday already. And tonight we're welcoming Rick Snay of Delphi After Dark. It's going to be an exciting show. I'm having a little difficulty here getting my slideshow up, so we'll get this together and then we'll get right into it. So while we do that, everyone hit the like and go ahead and subscribe if you're not, and go ahead and grab something to refresh yourself with, and whether that be a snack or a drink, get yourself ready for a nice conversation. I think you guys are going to be pleased. We're going to have a watershed moment now because I think that many of you do not understand where we've been and where we are as a community. So we're going to try to be really settling some things tonight. And And one thing that's going to happen here is no. Let me just say this: if you have a wrench, okay, for tonight only, I'm going to say everyone with a wrench, you have the night off. Please don't delete anyone's comment. Please don't worry about modding the chat whatsoever. Okay, I'm going to solely handle that myself. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I thought that ringer was off. Um, so what I'm saying is, all my mods, relax, take the evening off, and don't worry about modding the chat. I'll handle that, and let me take care of that. Um, it's much more important that you actually listen tonight because, like I said, there's some things that need to be said that will be said, and there's lots and lots of things that I am trying to get prepared for the slideshow. And unfortunately, because we were running late, I did not have enough time to preload the slideshow, so I'm trying to load it now, and it's somewhat lagging. But hopefully it very soon takes care of itself. Okay, let's try again. Okay. All right, we'll do that. Hopefully that works. Okay, then we'll do this. And once we get this going, gosh have mercy. Okay, let's see. And we're prepared. We'll be rolling. So sorry for the delay. It just gives you more time to do what you got to do. But get this together. All right, that looks like it. So try it again. All right. So as soon as I get this loaded up, I'll be free to talk. So just please give me another moment. It's very imperative that I get this loaded. And should have pushed it back 30 minutes to make sure we were good to go, but I think we're good now. Let's see. Gonna get going. Okay, so let's get rolling here. All right, so listen up. Before we get too far into it, Armageddon is the prophesied location of the gathering of armies for a battle during the end times, which is variously interpreted as either a literal or symbolic location. The term is also used as a generic sense to refer to an end of the world scenario. In Islamic theology, Armageddon is also mentioned in Hadith as the greatest Armageddon or great battle. The word Armageddon appears only once in the Greek New Testament. In Revelation 16:16, the word is a Greek transliteration of the Hebrew Armageddon. Har means a mountain or a range of hills, and this is a shortened form of Harar, meaning to loom up a mountain. In Christianity, Armageddon is mentioned in the Old Testament. None of these Old Testament passages describe a city as being associated with any particular prophetic beliefs. The one New Testament reference to the city of Armageddon, found in Revelation 16:16, makes no specific mention of any armies being predicted to one day gather in the city either, but instead seems to predict that they will gather the kings together. This text does, however, seem to imply, based on the text from the earlier passage of Revelation 16:14, that the purpose of this gathering of kings in the place of Armageddon is for war of the great day of God the Almighty. Because of the high, seemingly symbolic and cryptic language of this New Testament passage, some Christian scholars conclude that Mount Armageddon must be an idealized location. There are no mountains, only plains of Megiddo. This is a deliberate destruction of the vision of any literal reference to the place. Most traditions interpret this Bible prophecy to be symbolic of the progression of the world toward the great day of God, the Almighty, in which God pours out his just and holy wrath against the unrepentant sinners led by Satan in a literal end of the world final confrontation. Armageddon is a symbolic name given to this event based on Scripture. References regarding divine obliteration of God's enemies. So, why would we call tonight Armageddon for liars? Well, simple. It's very simple. It's because we are putting an end to this world, if you would call it that, of toxic Delphi community relations. And we're going to do so in a very honest way, which is the way that the Holy Text would want you to, which is by pouring out the word of truth upon the actions of the evil in this community and surrounding this case, and allowing that truth to be the victor and also the healing balm that will settle contentious arguments. Because I think we're in a time where many of us have lost sight as to why we are here. Why are we discussing the Delphi murders in the first place? Is it to attack each other's character, to attack each other's children, to attack each other's spouses, places of employment, reputations, histories? Or is it to attempt to understand what happened to two poor, innocent young ladies, Abigail Williams, Liberty German, in 2017, that led to their deaths, and that led to us all coming around to decide that we should perhaps look into and try to understand and see if we might aid by spreading the word about their murders, or personally by being actual journalists and helping to understand and uncover things that people would prefer to remain hidden. And so that's why we are calling this presentation the Armageddon for Liars. And I think that you guys will be happy to hear from both me and my amazing guest, Rick Snay. And we're going to go ahead and stop with all the ado and invite him in and get started, because I have a long discussion and a good discussion I would like to have with Rick, and I know that all of you are here for that. So we're going to welcome on Mr. Rick Snay, and let me see if I can get him in here. All right, let's see.
Can you hear me okay?
Hey, Rick, looks like it. I see you now. How are you?
Can you hear me? I don't have my little microphone thing.
I hear you well. How can you hear us?
Okay, cool. Cool. I didn't know if I was out there, if people could hear me. So, yeah, I'm doing good except for the colds, but we won't talk about that. How you doing?
Awesome. I'm good. And people are saying perfect sound, so we're good to go. Wow. So, yeah. So, man, I wanted to, I'm still trying to pull up this slideshow. So, please allow me a second. And please, everyone in the chat, welcome on Rick. Oh, look, here we go. It looks like we're working now. So, we'll get this pulled out pretty soon. Oh, it's glitching. So, okay, we'll go. I'll try it again. So, welcome, Rick. Yeah, how was your weekend?
It wasn't too bad. Had yesterday off, and that was like rare. So, but got a lot of rest and things like that. So, had a good time. Did you find that document you were looking for?
I sure did. That's what I'm trying to get loaded up. I was trying to tell the audience I'm a little delayed in that, but there was a very important document I wanted Rick and I to be able to comment on. So I'm a little struggling here, but so Rick, we're here to talk about the liars. Okay, we're here to talk about that. You and I discussed this. We're here to call out some liars tonight, and as I was mentioning, we believe that the liars here have caused a lot of harm in this community.
Oh,
Yeah. And so I want to start with Judge Gull and our prosecutor Nick McClelland, and then we'll be getting into Tony Liggett. So, unfortunately, somebody's got to bear the burden of accepting responsibility or accountability for their actions. So, see if this works out here. Oh, there we go. So, I guess the first thing I wanted to look at was this. We got a letter. We have several letters, actually, and I'll be quick about it. I'll try to expediently move through this stuff. But we have Robert Baston. Robert Baston penned several letters in advocacy of Rick Allen. And we wanted to present this before we discuss the ruling on this. So let's see. I'm kind of going to be a little easy on us and only read what I've outlined in red, but you will be able to see there's plenty more that I don't read. But this one says, I am an inmate at the Westville Correctional Facility in the same unit that Richard Allen is being housed in, awaiting trial. Richard Allen is being abused and mistreated, along with other inmates in Westville Control Unit Restrictive Housing. There are corrupt officers and ranking officers calling Richard Allen a kid killer, teasing him that he has a visit from his family. Phone is ringing on his GTL tablet. Inmates in cells A1, 102, Logan Osborne, A2, 207, inmate Riley, inmate cell A2, 204, and A2, 205, threatening to kill Richard Allen and telling him to kill himself. And these inmates have made these comments in front of Warden John Gallipo, ranking officers and officers. Staff has recorded on camera these inmates making these threats and suggestions to kill himself and has done nothing to stop it. Okay. And we got a few more pages. We'll blaze through here. Okay, and you will see that this was in April of 2023. Okay, and then we move on to November of 2023. I used to be in a cell just above defendant Richard Allen, and as soon as I started voicing my opinion and advocating the abuse, mistreatment, and inhumane conditions of Richard Allen, myself and other inmates back in April 2023, and recording times and dates of incidents, the corrupt Westville Correctional Facility Warden John Gallipo, Custody Supervisor Chad Corinth, Westville Restrictive Housing Unit Captain Gary Lewis, and Manager Mrs. Tracy Cornett retaliated on me approximately April 29, 2023. And remember, that letter we just heard from was April 11th. And had me moved from APOD away from defendant Richard Allen. Then on May 4th, 2023, a corrupt Lieutenant Larry Crittenden places me on strip cell status and has corrupt Sergeant Robinson, Officer Garu, and Officer Pleasant remove all of my property from my cell. So I could not write or record dates and times of incidents, and went through my property to destroy any incriminating dates and times that I had recorded. All right. The next morning, May 5th, 2023, approximately 7 a.m., I was placed in full trip gear restraints with handcuffs, black box, belly chain, and leg shackles on security camera, and corrupt Sergeant Brandon Williams and officers removed me from the holding cell to escort me back to my assigned cell in the RHV VCU BG-202, and Sergeant Brandon Williams orders one of his corrupt officers to run my mattress and bedding through the urine on the floor of the cell, since I was left in a cell overnight with no running water or toilet. And then corrupt Sergeant Brandon Williams, who has a lawsuit on him in the U.S. Northern District of Indiana for assaulting an inmate and denying the inmate medical treatment for his injuries, can be seen on security cameras slamming me to the floor while in full trip gear restraints and violently twisting on my foot and ankle until they break, and then intimidating the nurse not to treat my injuries of a broken foot and ankle, and a stab wound to my elbow, all to the bone, that was bleeding badly from an ink pen sticking out of Sergeant Brandon Williams' stab vest. And I was then taken back to my assigned cell, B6202. Then at approximately 10:45 a.m., corrupt Sergeant Brandon Williams returns to my cell with no verbal command to come to cell door and no video camera recording. Sergeant Brandon Williams opens the handcuff port door and cell door and sprays me with OC pepper spray while I was laying in bed suffering from my injuries earlier that morning. Then the corrupt Sergeant Brandon Williams leaves me in cell asphyxiating for air for approximately 10 minutes before removing me from the cell. Sergeant Brandon Williams, former and now Sergeant Motts, Officer Clemens, and an unknown officer take me out of the view of security cameras in the hallway, and Officer Quentin Davis tells Sergeant Brandon Williams to hold me up while Officer Quentin Davis violently punches me in the ribs and stomach, breaking my ribs. Former officer and now Sergeant Motts kneed me in the face while corrupt Westville Correctional Facility Warden John Gallipo, mental health doctor Monica Walla, and Miss Bourne watched the beatdown. Note, Officer Quentin Davis also has a federal lawsuit on him for assaulting an inmate and denying medical treatment for his injuries. In May of 2023, right after the excessive use of force assault with bodily injury, attorney Brad Rossi, the attorney for Richard Allen, requested an interview with me concerning the poor treatment of Richard Allen and inmates at the Westville Restrictive Housing Unit, and inhumane and human civil rights violations. And someone at either Indiana DOC Central Office or Westville Correctional Facility Warden John Gallipo denied that interview because they did not want attorney Brad Rossi to see and record my injuries that they were trying to cover up. I remained in a cell for a month suffering from my injuries before I received medical treatment after being taken off strip cell and received my property back, and contacted the State of Indiana Governor's Office of Ombudsman Bureau, who contacted the IDOC Office of Investigation and Intelligence, who then got me medical treatment for only my broken foot and ankle, where x-rays confirmed they were broken. Note, while being interviewed by attorney Brad Rossi on August 4, 2023, a corrupt Sergeant Dahlia went to my cell B6202 and took all the incriminating dates and times of incidents that I had recorded. There needs to be a disbanding of the corrupt IDOC Office in Investigation and Intelligence and state and federal investigations into the corruption going on and the inhumane conditions, human and civil rights violations due to constant staff and officer shortages going on in all IDOC facilities that is creating unsafe and dangerous prison conditions. On November 8, 2023, an inmate at Westville Correctional Facility was murdered. Approximately in June 2023, an inmate died of starvation in Westville Restrictive Housing Unit. Inmates died of suicide in IDOC facilities due to the corruption. All right. Westville Restrictive Housing Unit custody staff say they care about inmates' quality of life, but I have not had a shower since October 2nd of 2023. And remember, this letter is written on November 23rd. Okay. Where were we? And this is October 2nd. So from October 2nd to 2023, no shower. And there's other inmates that have not showered longer than that because the inmates do not want to shower when officers are leaving inmates locked in a tiny triangle shower for hours with no place to sit down and having to stand because of short-staffed officers sleeping in the control booths. All right, almost done there, Rick. Sorry. All right, the corrupt Westville Correctional Facility warden Gallipo does not allow the Christian Amish church group called Christmas Behind Bars to pass out Christmas sacks to inmates because Warden Gallipo is the leader here of a pagan white nationalist group called Odin. The corrupt staff and officers here at Westville and at other Indiana DOC facilities wear Odin and Punisher patches on their uniforms and stab vests. The corrupt staff and officers that wear the Punisher patches is a group of good old boys that assault, torture, abuse, and mistreat inmates. I submitted an IDOC grievance to the IDOC Office of Investigations and Intelligence concerning the Odin and Punisher patches, but the grievance never got processed due to the corruption. When I was in a jail cell just above defendant Richard Allen, I witnessed officers taunting him, calling him a baby killer, kid killer, and deliberately slamming the shower door next to Richard Allen's cell to either wake him up or just annoy Richard Allen. I also witnessed other abuse and mistreatment to Richard Allen. There are dozens of lawsuits on staff and officers at Westville Restrictive Housing Unit in the U.S. Northern District Court of Indiana that clearly show a pattern of assault, torture, abuse, and mistreatment of inmates by corrupt staff and officers. The Indiana DOC does not put their corrupt staff and officers in their restrictive housing units that assault, torture, and abuse and mistreat inmates. Okay. And here's where we get to the good stuff. On April 11th, 2024, it was actually, August 29th, 2024. August 29th. The court having this matter under advisement following a hearing conducted on July 31st, 2024, on the defendant's motion to suppress statements, the state's objection to defendant's motion to suppress, the state's motion to dismiss, motion to suppress, filed April 11th, and the state's motion for admissibility, and having considered the witness's testimony, the exhibits admitted to evidence, the arguments of counsel, and the applicable statutes and case law, now grants the state's request for a pretrial ruling on admissibility. The statements given by defendant to Dr. Monica Walla are not privileged based upon the exception noted in the statute. Okay. Having taken the state's motion to dismiss, the motion to suppress filed April 11, 2024 under advisement at hearing, the court agrees with the state that the defendant has failed to comply with the criminal rules of procedure by neglecting to clearly state which specific statements he is seeking to suppress, nor the legal basis for suppression. Despite these deficiencies, the court has been able to determine that the statements given to the defendant's family members were voluntary, not coerced by any state action, and were not made under threats of violence or improper influence. Although the defendant is clearly in custody, he initiated the communication with his family and was not subject to custodial interrogation when he spoke this to family. Further, the statements given by the defendant to the correctional officers, inmate companions, the warden, mental health personnel, medical personnel, and the ISP were unsolicited by any of those individuals and were voluntarily given without coercion or interrogation. The defendant has not shown that he suffered from psychological coercion by the state, which caused him to make those statements. To the contrary, the evidence shows he specifically sought out the warden by written communication he initiated and verbal statements he offered to the guards, inmate companions, mental health professionals, and medical personnel. The defendant has failed to show any of these statements were the result of coercive interrogation by the state or that they were the result of his pretrial detention. The totality of the circumstances of the defendant's pretrial detention were not intended to force confessions from the defendant. The defendant's pretrial detention is to protect him from harm. The court is not persuaded that the detention caused the defendant to make incriminating statements. While the defendant does suffer from major depressive disorder and anxiety, those are not serious mental illnesses that prevent the defendant from making voluntary statements. The court finds that the statements given by the defendant to Dr. Monica Walla, the warden, inmates, guards, medical personnel, mental health professionals, and law enforcement personnel were not coerced, were voluntary, were not the result of interrogation by state or its actors, nor the product of his confinement, and therefore denies the defendant's motion to suppress statements. Signed by your and my favorite gaslighting judge, Francis Seagull. Yeah, Rick.
Yep. You know, I knew from the first time I saw her in the courtroom, the hearing that they had about his, well, it was supposed to be about one thing and then it became about another. And it got into the argument about moving him from Westville. And I could tell from the results of that hearing, she just gave into them on everything. And I sat there thinking, this is unbelievable. There's only one person in the world that could have allowed those guys to put those patches on their uniforms, and it's John Gallipo.
I mean, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, and for them to try and pass it off, you know, and it's not something that happens all the time. You know, it's not one of these things, oh yeah, we had to have so-and-so take his, you know, praise Allah badge off of his uniform, you know. No, they know better than to do that. You know, it's ridiculous. So I can't understand how, and then again, we get into it. It's another one of those amazing coincidences that this man who happens to be accused of a crime, that it seems like there is a possibility that people involved in Odinism actually committed the crime, and he just so happens to have two Odinists, you know, watching him at Westville.
What are the odds?
You know, and you know, Kira brought up to me the other day. She and I were talking, and she brought up to me that isn't it funny how the coincidences, when they first started talking about Richard Allen and everybody was saying, well, he was wearing the same thing and he was there at the same time and there are no coincidences in this sort of stuff. Well, now all of a sudden there's all these other coincidences, but they're just coincidences. That don't add up to me.
Well, it's kind of amazing how she turned that language around, like to go ahead and add on. I notice she does this often. She gaslights. She actually turned it around and said that let's find it. The defendant's pretrial detention is to protect him from harm. Well, sure did seem like to me, if you listen to the excerpts from the letters that I just read, it doesn't sound like he was being prevented from harm. It sounds like he was being harmed. I mean,
yeah. You know, and the funny thing is, this wasn't their first time. They had Ron Logan early on, and they wanted to do the same thing with him. So about maybe a year and a half ago, I got a copy of a letter that Andrew Aki wrote to the ACLU about the treatment of Ron Logan while he was being held. And I think they learned from that experience that they needed to up their game a little bit and that they had to do this intimidation thing. They had to outsource it to people that knew what they were doing. So they sent him to Westville, and they figured, well, this time we're not going to make the same mistakes we made with Ron Logan. We're going to get this guy to confess, because that's the whole point. If he doesn't confess, they have to go to trial, and they don't have a case.
That's the thing, and I believe that's the whole thing with the gaslighters about the confessions, like are even implying a plea deal. They need a plea deal, bottom line, and they need everything's very weakly circumstantial. They need confessions. They need a plea deal because they ain't winning at trial.
Mm-mm. They got nothing. The only thing they have is that bullet, which is the weakest bunch of BS. That's not going to fly. Not with a jury. You may get one or two people on the jury that say, "Oh yeah, I can see that." You're not going to get all 12.
No. Well, I got a bunch more to bring up here. Let's see. Take a second here. I am struggling with these slides today. Let's see. Okay.
My dog's driving me nuts.
All right. All right.
Hey, sweetheart.
Defense detailed newly discovered evidence, hereafter called the Blocher Report, that suggests that the phone that was found at the scene where the victims of the murders were ultimately found on February 14, 2017, had actually been taken out of the area on February 13th, before being brought back to the area at some point in time on February 14th.
Mm-hmm.
You ever heard that before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was something I brought up. I actually have a short of it, too, that I said it was. And that's not one of those things that came from, who, that there was evidence that Libby's phone left the scene and returned.
This is important because law enforcement have maintained from the beginning of the case that the girls were murdered on February 13, 2017, and remained in that place where they were found from the following day, never leaving the area where they were ultimately found. This new evidence, therefore, would show that the phone and the victims were taken outside of the area where they were ultimately found, but then brought back to the area a later time. Specifically, the defense received certain geofencing evidence that at least 3 persons were in or around the crime scene at the time while the murders were taking place, according to the law enforcement official timeline. And none of the owners of those phones have any connection to Richard Allen. This geofencing evidence would provide evidence of any of the following scenarios. Those persons walking with the phones are witnesses that would have observed the murders as they were taking place, and none of them have identified Richard Allen. Or those persons walking with the phones were witnesses who observed nothing, as the murders did not take place the afternoon of February 13th, 2017, but the victims were taken to the crime scene after the search was called off. February 14th, those persons walking with the phones were participants in the murders. Said geofencing evidence was so important that somebody involved in the investigation that they created a map and plotted the movements of those persons, including movements that show that at least one of these persons was within 60 to 100 yards of the crime scene at a time while the murders would have been committed, according to law enforcement's timeline. The phones once again had no connection to Richard Allen. Furthermore, the map shows that the other 2 phones and the persons carrying those phones were in and around the crime scene between 12:39 p.m. and 5:49 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. What do you know? Sounds like we got some problems with all kinds of phones, doesn't it?
Yeah, and as I've brought up with on my channel before, keep in mind that simply because of where the phone was found, we know a few things. The phone was found inside one of Libby's shoes turned upside down underneath one of Abby's legs, right where her leg went underneath the other leg to form the hanged man pose. That phone was found inside that shoe. That had a couple of different effects. Number one, it protected it from the weather. If it were to happen to rain or something, the phone would be protected. Meaning, they wanted this phone to be found. They absolutely knew that video was on the phone. So they wanted this phone to be found. And then the phone being turned on at like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It was briefly turned on, and then it was turned off. So it's weird, But also, if you think about it, why is law enforcement so intent on making it seem like the girls were killed in the afternoon? Well, because then they were dead basically before the police even got involved. If they go ahead and say what really happened, that they were killed later, they were taken from the scene and killed, brought back and killed later. If they did that, then what happened, when Tobe called off the search the night before, and when Tobe called off the dogs, these weren't cadaver dogs. They weren't looking for bodies. These dogs would have come in and found the girls because they would have given them the scent. They would have followed that scent wherever it went, and it would have led them right to where the girls were being held. But Tobe called the dogs off. And if they had kept searching, then the area wouldn't have been safe for what they wanted to do. So the search was called off. And if they, knowing, if you go with that theory that they were taken and then brought back, they were alive when the search was called off. And that all falls right back onto the shoulders of Sheriff Tobe Lesenby.
Well, yes, it does. And in my opinion, at this point in time, Rick, I have to say this, and I'm sorry for everyone, because this right here, when I realized this in my own mind, because, we have to keep our minds open. It's a big deal, especially when you've been the victim of brainwashing or PR campaign, such as this case appears to be. It occurred to me that I had to forget everything. And what I had to understand is that if you understand that those girls were found in the morning time or so, up until 12, so let's say they're found anywhere between daylight and 12 on the 14th, then basically that's all you know. So all you know is they are found dead. Well, in my opinion, as an open-minded person, once I wipe that slate of the narrative I was given, I start to look at it like the movie Clue, and I say, you know what? All we know is we have 2 dead girls found on February 14th. So suddenly, everyone at that scene prior to the time they're found becomes a suspect. And that means all the searchers, all the law enforcement who are out there, all the firemen, all the family, all anyone. And so be it. Yes, if Richard Allen was there in the morning on the 13th, yes, I guess he would be included in those 300 people or 500 people. So that's important to remember, because we've been fed this timeline that's so narrow and the suspect list that's so narrow. But you have to think, all we know is we stumbled upon some dead girls on February 14th. So then we have to start to think, well, damn, who all was there before they were found dead? And Michael is right here that 4:33 a.m. is when that phone turned on, which to me, I look at it like it was a, hey guys, we're here, come find us moment.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with Rick that the phone's placed in a safe place from the weather. It's placed under a body under a shoe and then turned on almost like a beacon to say, hey, you guys come find me now. We're right here on Ron Logan's. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's the first time I've ever heard it put that way, like a beacon. That's exactly true.
So let's see what else we got. We got a bunch to look at. Let's see. Oh yeah, some more lying. Okay, Jeffrey Turco. Turco's words and information that Holman left out of his report because he's a liar include the following. After viewing the way the sticks at the crime scene were arranged, it was a given that the pattern of sticks was someone's attempt to replicate a Germanic runic script.
Yeah, and you hear people now saying that Turco said, "Oh, wasn't that ritualistic about it? Nope, nah." That's not what he said.
Not what he said. One of Turco's colleagues, a Harvard professor with even more expertise, agreed. Odinism is an extreme nego-pagan, nego-heathenism, white supremacy ideology that has right-wing racist connotations. Brad Holder and Pat Westphal were known to be involved in these extremist racist groups. Although he could not necessarily interpret the intended meaning of these sticks forming the runes, the stick configurations were pretty clearly runic, and that he could certainly imagine that this was somebody's idea, that when you do human sacrifice, you carve runes. There are some poetic sources that would support the idea that somebody might have come across that scenario seems, quote unquote, entirely plausible to me. And that's from his taped statement. Furthermore, Turco discussed how runes were thought to have a magical significance and would be used in incantations and rituals, and that there's a sacrificial connection in mythological poetry, also in a taped statement. In other words, here's what Holman did not write. Turco told me that it was a given that this arrangement of sticks. So let's put it this way. Since we're phrasing our show in this way, liars and truth. If Holman was telling the truth and was not lying, he would have said, Turco told me that it was a given that the arrangement of the sticks were part of a runic script. Investigators have learned that runes are a feature of those who practice Odinism, and those who practice Odinism are sometimes aligned with racist extremist groups. Brad Holder's son had some type of dating relationship with one of the victims, and Brad Holder was an Odinist, fascinated with runes, which are found throughout his Facebook page. Additionally, I like to add, made of found sticks in the wood, not just drawn runes, but stumbling across sticks in the woods, forming them into runes, and taking pictures exactly like we see on the bodies of these girls. Brad Holder and Patrick Westphal were also affiliated with racist extremist groups. Also, Turco admitted that it was entirely plausible that somebody would read something on the internet indicating that Viking religions involved human sacrifice, and that some person could have an idea that when conducting a human sacrifice, runes should be carved or runes should be used, and that runes have a magical significance and would be used in rituals. But instead of including Turco's wording detailed in the previous paragraph, Holman wrote that Turco's findings, here's a lie, were inconclusive, and then failed to even mention the word rune even a single solitary time.
That's almost unbelievable, isn't it?
I would love to say that that's the extent of the lying and the gaslighting and the total narrative control, but it's just the first two dominoes, Rick.
Just tip of the iceberg.
Tip of the iceberg. Got a lot more to go. Let's see. What do we have here? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, everything you're hearing tonight has been outright denied by our judge and objected to by our prosecutor. On March 13, 2024, Mr. Allen by counsel filed his third Frank's notice. Based on evidence recently provided by the prosecution, Frank's 3 detailed the following information omitted from the search warrant. At least 3 persons were in or around the crime scene at the time the murders were allegedly taking place, and none of the owners of the phones had any connection to Richard Allen. And Purdue professor Jeffrey Turco wrote in a report provided to Unified Command that the markings constitute an inscription inspired by Norse runes or modern recreations thereof. Gets better. At different times during the hearing, the state of Indiana, by prosecutor McClelland, spoke the following words as it relates to the potential for third-party culpability. And this is from the defendant's supplemental motion, defendant's supplemental submission regarding state's motion in limine 8/13/2024. It says, these are the words of Nicholas McClelland, our prosecutor. This is still a very ongoing investigation. Our goal is to find anyone else who was involved in this heinous crime. That is in the public interest, to find anyone else involved and get justice for Abby and Libby. Also, we have good reason to believe that Richard Allen is not the only person involved in this case, that there may be other actors involved. That's why we left the tip line open. That's why we left the tip email open. And let me interject. That's why to this very day, at this very moment, you can go to the ISP Delphi Murders website and you can go to the FBI Delphi Murders websites and you can see clearly that the tip line's still open. They are still looking for the guy in the young guy sketch. And they are still looking for the guy in the bridge guy video. Sorry to break it to you. The question becomes, at least in the state's mind, is it more important to release details in the investigation to the public or more important to keep those confidential? Yes, Nick, because you want to bury everything and hide it all, just like the no cameras. It puts the investigation in the best position possible to determine if anybody else was involved. Okay? It's in the best interest of the public that the investigation find anybody else involved. Well, I would agree, Nicholas. In pertinent part, Detective Holman's letters sought the sealing of the records for many reasons. This is Holman now. One being that the investigation is ongoing and fluid. The exhibit created by investigator Mullins, and this is Mullins, cited that the matter was still being actively investigated. Investigator Mullen went on to state that law enforcement was, quote, continuing to search and seek facts and important information relating to Richard Allen and other potential suspects. So they want you to believe right now, and they are working extremely hard to make Richard Allen a lone wolf killer. These same people who just recently were saying others are involved. We have good reason to believe. Investigation's still open. We're looking for anyone else involved. These are your people. Now, back to another liar. I want to address Doug Carter. Because Rick, let me put this away for a minute. Rick, for my first year, now Rick, you've been on you were on YouTube a good year or so more before I came on. Okay, so
yeah.
So you were highly active in all of the Reddits and the other Facebooks and stuff, and then you made a YouTube channel about a year before I did. So you've been at it longer than me, and you may know that when I came on, I was a big believer in Doug Carter. I thought that he was giving us these cryptic hints. And
me too.
Yeah. And it really took me to be shaken up by a few things. And there are some things that I won't address tonight that some people don't know about. But there's some things that Doug has done behind the scenes, and that's not really public knowledge that I don't like. But then there's this. And what I'm talking about is this document right here. So this document released in April of 2019. Now, you may remember that Doug Carter gave us this mysterious theatrical display on April 22nd, 2019, which we call the Change of Direction press conference, in which this young guy sketch was introduced. And there's all kinds of things about that. But people had so many questions about this new sketch that this release was put together 2 days later by Riley and Burston, which states that in regards to the two sketches, they are not the same person. The person depicted in the original old guy sketch is not presently a person of interest. The sketch released on April 22nd, the young guy sketch, is representative of the face of the person captured in the video, just like they'd have you believe to this very day on the ISP and the FBI websites. The person released on the April 22nd sketch is described as having a youthful appearance, but, and this is key to understand this phrase, but could fall in the range from 20s to 30s. So to me, that's indicating someone closer to the age of 17, 18, 19, or 20, but could fall in the range of 20s to late 30s. Well, what does Doug Carter say now? Doug Carter says now, they're both Richard Allen. Here you go.
And he makes the little
killer.
Yeah. You can tell that you can tell he really believes it, because when he really believes something, he does those mugging faces, you know. He actually tries to say, if you take one sketch and the other sketch and you put them together, you got Richard Allen.
No way. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the sketches. First of all, they look absolutely nothing like each other. Okay, one's 40 or over. One is approximately 20 years old. They're 20 years apart in age. One has facial hair, one doesn't. What else? They were allegedly produced by witnesses who saw each individual 2 hours apart, because they are now blaming the old guy sketch on Sarah Carbo, but we know it was actually a composite sketch made to reflect the person in the bridge guy video, but they're blaming it on Sarah Carbo right now.
Yeah.
Who saw that person at 4, approximately. The young guy sketch they blame on Betsy Blair, who saw that person at 2 and says it's a 10 out of 10. Now, Rick, if you would see a sketch of the Prof, how accurate would it have to be for you to say a 10 out of 10?
It would have to be almost a picture.
Like a picture. And, you know, we can do this. Like, I can take a screenshot of you and I could put the computer filter that makes it look like a pencil drawing. I would say that would be a 10 out of 10.
There you go.
But if I compare that young guy sketch to any variety of a photo I've ever seen of Richard Allen, there's no way I could ever say that that's a 10 out of 10 for Richard Allen. I would say, I don't know, maybe 50%.
And these are going to be things they're going to have to answer at trial. They're going to have to explain this to the jury.
Good point.
And you know, while we're talking about sketches, here's a really interesting thing to think about. I don't know if we've seen, most of us by now have seen what they call the tweaker sketch, which I believe was drawn from the description by the woman who was letting her dogs out that morning and waiting, you know, because her and her husband were getting ready to leave. And as they left, she says her husband stopped and rolled down the window and said, "Hey, can I help you?" And he took off. You know, he was standing by the mailboxes there. And then they took that, they took her description and made the drawing that to me looks a hell of a lot like Elvis Fields.
You know what? Let me pull that up, because I think some people may not have seen it. And I'd like to show the people this tweaker sketch, because it is.
Yes, do.
I would agree that it looks most like Elvis Fields of any of the faces we've come across.
Right. And keep in mind when you look at this, people, this is what are there? 3,000 people in the county or whatever, 3,000 people in Delphi, 9,000 in the county or something. It's a very small place. New people stand out like a sore thumb. And this is a morning that 2 girls disappeared and were later found murdered. And this woman describes a guy that nobody recognizes, and you would never have seen that sketch had somebody not gotten a hold of it and put it out, because they buried that sketch.
Oh yeah, it was buried. Yep.
You know, in a a town there where everybody knows everybody. You see a strange guy like that, and it's the morning that two girls disappear in the same exact area that they disappear from, and nobody finds it odd that this guy was hanging out there. We never heard about him. Never.
Never. All right, I got it here. Let's see.
Look at that. I mean, I can see Logan Holder too if he were like, really tired or tweaked out. But this to me is Elvis Fields.
Yeah, who is that?
I mean, that to me is Elvis Fields.
How many of you have not seen this?
And it's been around since almost day one.
All right, let's see. All right, the hits just keep on coming here. Let's see what we got here. Here we got trying to read. The presence of Allen's Ford Focus is also in dispute, defense attorneys argued. Allen told investigators he arrived on the trails around 12 p.m. and he left around 1:30 p.m. According to the timeline set by investigators, the killings likely happened between 1:30 and 4, meaning Allen would have left according to his recollection. A witness reported seeing a different vehicle, not Allen's Ford Focus, but rather a 1965 Mercury Comet, parked outside the CPS building around 2:15, but this detail was omitted in the affidavit. Yes, it was. A separate witness reported seeing a man wearing a tan-colored coat, not a blue jacket. She also told investigators he was muddy. The affidavit, however, said the man was wearing a blue-colored coat and blue jeans and was muddy and bloody, with Liggett adding the last detail, bloody, not the witness. All right, and here we have some quotations. At 12:15, when Betsy Blair passed the old CPS building, Betsy Blair did not see a black Ford Focus parked at the old CPS lot. The car that Betsy Blair observed as she passed the old CPS building at 2:15 looked nothing like a black Ford Focus. According to Liggett's own report, Betsy Blair observed one car parked in the CPS lot at 2:15. And that car resembled a 1965 Mercury Comet that her father once owned. The shape had sharper angles. Again, to whom did Betsy Blair provide this description of a 1965 Comet-looking angular in appearance vehicle? None other than Liggett himself. Liggett was fully aware that the car Betsy Blair described as being backed into a spot in the old CPS building looked nothing like Richard Allen's black Ford Focus, but Liggett concealed that information from Judge Diener. Betsy even provided a sketch of the side profile of this car that she observed at the CPS lot, featuring the angles that the car possessed. Betsy Blair's sketch of the side profile of the car is attached and marked as Exhibit 113. The sketch definitely looks nothing like the side profile of Richard Allen's car. A photo of a Ford Focus similar to the one owned by Richard Allen is also attached, marked as Exhibit 114. And let's keep going with Liggett's lies. The problem is that in 2017, Sarah Carbo told Liggett to his face that the man she observed walking west on 300 North was wearing a tan-colored coat and a lighter-colored coat, not a blue jacket. This is a problem because the color of the man's coat did not match the coat of the 20-year-old boyish-looking man with the poofy brown hair that Betsy Blair observed 2 hours earlier. Betsy Blair observed on the High Bridge at 2 p.m. A man in a blue jacket. Liggett is claiming both men are the same man, Richard Allen. The problem was that Carbo did not observe that man walking down 300 North wearing a blue jacket. She observed a tan jacket. That meant Sarah Carbo and Betsy Blair observed two different men. This created a problem for Liggett's timeline. So instead of being honest, remember this show is about truth versus lies. Liggett chose to represent to Judge Diener falsely that Carbo observed a man wearing a blue jacket when in her 2017 interview she described it as tan. Find attached a flash drive containing her June 7th, 2017 interview in which, with Tony Liggett, marked as Exhibit 115. Carbo describes the man that she observed was wearing a tan color, lighter colored coat at the 5:07 mark.
Real quickly, before I forget about it, I just saw a comment there. Who was it? Criminal Network says that Brad Holder was the only person of interest that has no criminal record. He actually does have a criminal record. He's been arrested several times for domestic violence. There may be something else in there. You know, the one that's closest to not having a criminal record would be Elvis. The rest of them, Westfall and Messer, both have a history of violence.
I wonder if that was a typo and he meant has a criminal record. What do you mean criminal network? Clarify.
Criminal record there, yeah, or a criminal, yeah. So they had he's the only POI. Now, I mean, he didn't have. I'm pretty sure he has been incarcerated, but I know I looked up the other day. I was looking up some of the history of some of these guys, and it was they became hyperactive, so to speak, in 2017. And as I brought up, making no political statements of any kind, but Trump is popular with white supremacist groups. And that's when a lot of them started getting, the Proud Boys, and some of them started getting a little bolder and coming out.
Oh, well, you can see the Vinlanders at a march, so they tried to co-opt his political movement for their own purposes.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Look at this. I want to show you, just for our listeners, our viewers, or whatever you want to call yourselves. Okay, this is a 1965 Mercury comet. You see?
Yeah.
Let's see if I can blow one up for you. Observe. Okay. Would you ever mistake that?
It's very distinct to the shape of the 65 comet. Is
all right. Question here for you guys. Would you ever mistake that for this vehicle? I mean, you got to be kidding me, right? Who's smoking what? Well, you guys smoking?
Exactly.
Yeah, you lace. What are we lacing this shit with? Because we don't do.
There aren't enough mushrooms in the world.
No, we don't do that. I'm sorry. Okay, let's see. Let's pulling up the paperwork. I'm okay. Let's stay on task here. But oh my gosh, look at this shit. So we're getting deeper because our unhidden judge, she's also done one of these. Okay, she's done one of these. Look at this list, if you will. This is the list that the prosecutor begged for to omit from any discussion at the trial. This is part of that list includes Odinism, cult or ritualistic killing, Brad Holder, Pat Westfall, Johnny Messer, Elvis Fields, Ned Smith, Rod Abrams, Keegan Kline, Jerry Klein, Ron Logan, anything by Todd Click, any reference to geofencing and or testimony from the state's expert about geofencing, any reference to the criminal history prior bad acts of any witness, any reference to the files, how the files were labeled, and how the prosecution trickled discovery in a what's the word I'd like to use, in a defiant manner, trickled discovery over to the defense attorneys. No reference to PowerPoints provided by the state that were used by law enforcement for their own purposes. Okay. Now, it's not even the Okay, here we go. Also, whoops, that's not it. I seem to have jumped ahead. Let's see. How does that happen? Where were we? Here? Okay, we were here. I don't know. All my stuff got scrambled. Let me see what happened here.
Skip says those cars looked identical. Come on,
Yeah,
Skip. The
don't
wheels looked a little different. I mean, they had different rims. You didn't see the different rims?
All right,
Other
here we
than
go.
that, though, I couldn't tell the
Let's
difference.
look at this. This was the one she just denied. I mean, it's just been. I mean, for our viewers, it's been one after the other. Many of our viewers would know that, but those of you who are new to the Delphi murders, you got to understand that we're dealing with a charge against an individual who's charged with this crime, and despite the voluminous evidence that the defense has provided of all sorts of things, malfeasance, bad faith, third-party suspects, evidence from the crime scene, evidence of others' confessions. I mean, just a litany of things. Our judge has outright denied, and just it's been a strong-arm technique. I mean, all we've seen is token sorts of judgments that are grants towards the request of the defense. She's granted token judgments like expediting discovery by 15 days or so. She's done that kind of stuff, but she's never given anything substantial. So here, what we're looking at is one of the most recent things that she's done. It says on September 18, 2023, the defense filed its first Frank's notice, which time the defense revealed in great detail its defense that Odinism, Norse paganism explained the unusual nature of the crime scene. Furthermore, identified particular suspects who were tied to the victims. And let's take a break here and remind our viewers that Todd Click, Ferenczi, and Murphy were all law enforcement officers. Every bit of the information about Pat Westfall, Brad Holder, Odinism, the crime scene, Elvis Fields, and anyone else in this Odinist or Frank's Motion information came directly from investigations and law enforcement product regarding the Delphi murders. And the defense attorneys has requested to include that in the trial against Richard Allen because it is law enforcement product, it is discovery. But the judge has just blanket denied every bit of it. And the people who are running around controlling the PR for the state have tried to cast it as if it's the fanciful imaginings of the defense attorneys that have just pulled this out of thin air. Okay? Anyway, she's denying discovery to be used at trial. And all of what we've just read and what we're about to is all from discovery, law enforcement product from actual investigators with long careers as law enforcement officers that worked on the Delphi murders. Frank's notice was very transparent and left no doubt that the defense would be claiming that A, Odinism, Norse paganists were involved in the murders of victims. B, law enforcement began investigating the links between the crime scene and Odinism, Norse paganism within 3 days of the murder. C, that law enforcement began investigating Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall as suspects within 3 days of the murders. D, that at least 3 law enforcement officers continued to investigate into Norse Odinist paganist ties to the murders, particularly ties between Holder, Westfall, and certain men in Rushville to the murders. E, that Richard Allen had no connection to Odinism. Norse paganism, therefore could not have left signatures of Norse paganism at the crime scene. In spite of the prosecutor knowing defendant Allen's third-party defense on September 18, 2023, the prosecution waited over 7 months before filing the motion in limine on April 29, 2024. Prosecution's motion was filed 15 days from May 14th at the trial setting, or which was the original trial setting before our YouTubers tried to take down the entire defense by leaking crime scene photos. But we'll get to that momentarily. On April 29, 2024, the prosecution filed its motion in limine requesting that in paragraph 7A and 7B that the court prevent the defense from presenting evidence that explains the defense's belief of what the crime scene shows. Because Richard Allen has no ties to Norse paganism nor Odinism, the evidence the state of Indiana sought to exclude would prevent Richard Allen from arguing that Richard Allen did not commit the murders, as he knows nothing about Norse paganism, and therefore would have had no motive or knowledge to leave signatures of Norse paganism behind. On August 1st, 2024, the defense presented evidence through expert witnesses, or witness Dawn Perlmutter, that the crime scene was a textbook ritualistic killing, or at least appeared to be. This opinion was offered from an expert who literally wrote the book on analyzing a crime scene for ritualistic murder and also teaches FBI, DEA, what else was it? State police, feds, Homeland Security for 20 years on this very subject. All over the country. What ritualistic crime scenes look like. Furthermore, Dr. Perlmutter has almost exclusively worked for law enforcement and prosecutors, not the defense. The jury would have been able to assess the weight of her work. Furthermore, in its April 29th, 2024 motion in limine, the prosecution requested the court prevent the defense from presenting evidence about Tony Klein and Keegan Klein. Furthermore, the prosecution requested the court prevent the defense from presenting evidence of third-party suspect Ron Logan, even though the bodies were found on Ron Logan's property. The FBI authored a probable cause affidavit that stated Ron Logan placed a call on his property at 2:09. Furthermore, motion in limine requested the court prevent the defense from presenting any evidence from law enforcement officer Todd Click, who investigated the Norse pagan Odinist. So let's take a break there and get some feedback on that.
It gets overwhelming. I mean, it's just, I mean, really, why, if there was no indication that there was any kind of Odinistic bent to the crime, why were Richard Allen, or I mean, why were Brad Holder and Pat Westfall questioned?
Yep, I'm sorry. I see that one of your former friends is in the chat, gaslighting everybody, using my photoshopped image as a profile pic. So don't worry, guys. We're about to get into you. Yeah, we're about to get to you. Just hold on tight. Isn't it overwhelming though? I mean, it's like no matter which of these points we touch, it's all unbelievable. Now, let's talk about phones again, because there's so much that's going to be coming about phones. Let's talk about this issue here. You heard from Christopher Cecil. Christopher Cecil on August 1st, which was just recently, not too long ago. Christopher Cecil's discussing here the phone that was found under the victim, or under Abigail Williams, but the phone, I just say it was found under both victims because it was with both victims. That phone, all right, is there a phone or a picture that you learned of that you could not find on Liberty German's phone? Yes. What was that? That was the picture of Abby Williams walking across the bridge. It's kind of taken off at an angle. And was that posted to her Snapchat account? So my understanding from social media is that's what it was. And I was asked to try to see if I could find that by the investigators. And could you find that? No, I could not. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that image right there, these people used to try and, in my opinion, place the victim at a certain place in a certain time. Now, I was attacked rather viciously for claiming that photograph is photoshopped. Now, at this point in time, you're looking at two possibilities here. That photograph was uploaded from a second phone one of the victims had, or from someone else across town who had the login information for Liberty Snapchat.
Yeah, I mean, and because see, that's where when I looked at what I was told was the original picture and put it through photo forensics, there was no evidence of Snapchat. I mean, of photoshopping. But it's not impossible for what you just said. I mean, it could have happened either of those two ways. Someone else could have uploaded it. Someone could have had Libby's login information and so forth.
Yeah, and so my take on that, I put more faith in my two experts who were 30-year veterans of, how should I put that? One was a law enforcement expert in this Photoshop area. The other was a military contractor expert. So my two experts that looked at it both came back with almost a verbatim declaration that it was Photoshopped. And I published that information for the viewers to make their own decisions. But, and secondly, I would put those two lifelong experts in digital forensics ahead of any type of app that you can put a phone in or an image in. So that's why I knew that there were people using some sort of software that's supposed to show photoshopping. But what I understood is that very good expert photoshopping will not show on those apps. So I looked at it like, well,
and I'm no expert.
Yeah, me either. That's why I had to consult. But I leaned towards the two experts who corroborated each other. And I thought, well, maybe the software is missing the photoshopping that was done. But I'll say at this point, even if it's not photoshopped, the real question is, it didn't come from Liberty's phone. We know that now. Look, I'm going to put it in your faces again. So where did it come from? And why? Is it our own proof of life of Abby being alive?
And this is part of what the state does not want included. You know, the state doesn't want people to hear this evidence.
No, I mean, it's all bad. I mean, like you say, like every single point we're touching is bad. It's not like we're hitting things that's like, oh, well, that's good news for the case. All right, let's see what's next here. We went through that. This is the evidence. This is the receipt for you guys who we spoke about this, but here's a receipt for it from the court filings that as far as the pings go, the last ping was 5:44 p.m. And the very next ping was the next morning, 4:33 a.m. Well, how many hours is that? Isn't that like 11 hours?
Yeah,
That's 11 hours in the dark of night to be able to do whatever you wanted with those girls and those phones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the receipt for that. We'll move on. I'm trying to rush through here. Now, what is this? Oh, this is about the conflicting story of the sketches. So this is where Holman is saying that it's Sarah Carbo who produced that sketch. But we know because of the years of statements they made that that sketch was a composite sketch based on who they believed was in that Bridge Guy video. Okay. So then another piece of the questioning here is the state police didn't always view sketch 1 and 2 as the same guy. That's the conflicting over the sketches. So, then they bring up the press release. So we'll blaze through that because we've already been through that. We covered that, Rick. So we'll go through that. And there's a bunch of arguing over the sketches we'll go through. And here I tried to make a point. I showed this yesterday or Friday. The point I was trying to make, Rick, if you look at this, okay, the first thing highlighted says, Betsy Blair advised when she was leaving, she noted a vehicle. Okay, the reason I highlighted that is that's the first sighting. Okay, that's one sighting of a vehicle. But notice the oddity. The description of the vehicle is intentionally omitted. Okay, it doesn't say that she noted a 1965 looking Mercury Comet with sharp angles like her dad used to own. Yeah, he left that out. He just put a vehicle. Okay, but then he gets to the next witness, Terry Wilson. He describes it. He observed a purple PT Cruiser or small SUV type vehicle, which you would also assume would have been purple. Okay, so Terry Wilson then is observing a purplish PT Cruiser or small SUV type vehicle. Okay, then you go down here, Wesley McWhirter is describing a smaller dark colored car, possibly being a smart car.
Yeah, a smart car. I mean, who confuses a smart car for an SUV?
I mean, who confuses a Mercury Comet with a Ford Focus with a PT Cruiser with the smart car?
Sure doesn't make any sense to me.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. I don't know why all my things are out of order, but we're good to go. Let's see. The order wasn't important. What's important is what's here. Okay. Oh, there. Here we go. So, Rick, I guess this is a good time to start transitioning. So, let's pull this down for a moment. So, the point that we're trying to make tonight, and clearly Rick and I have spoken for hours on this case now at this point. We are trying to make a point that the law enforcement, in actions, the prosecutor, and in decisions or judgments, the judge, are all lying to you. Now, this is the United States of America. We cherish our freedoms. We cherish honesty. We cherish hard work, altruism, these sorts of things. We're all idealists. Rick and I could not be any more different. Rick and I, oh man, I couldn't find anyone more different. We have different taste in music, in politics, in religion, in attire, in I don't know. I think Rick and I, we pretty much differ in a lot of things. But I think where we agree upon is we don't like liars. When it comes to what matters, okay? And that's why you see Rick and I sitting here tonight. Because we don't like to be lied to. And we don't like people lying about us. I'm very well prepared to shoulder anything that I've done and take responsibility. Accountability is very big in my book because I believe in integrity. And I think Rick does too. So you guys know that Rick and I have experienced quite a past year of heartache. Uh, Separately, in personal lives, uh, Rick's personal life has been attacked. He's been in the ups and downs. My personal life and my kids have been attacked. I've been in the ups and downs. There have been times when I wanted to quit the case. There's been times when Rick has wanted to quit the case. Well, wouldn't you know? You really shouldn't try to control people. Because when you try to control people and they break free and recognize that, you can never earn that respect back. You know, see, I always say my respect is up front. You know, so I respect you until you lose it, and then earning it back has one caveat, and that's accountability. You know, so the thing about Rick and I is what happened is there are some people who never realized that Rick and I would talk. They never realized that Rick and I would be gentlemen in regards to each other, take accountability for where we were wrong with each other, and figure out where it was really coming from. And so one thing Rick and I realized is not only did we realize the where, we realized the why, the how, the when, and the who. And yes, this is when we both realize we're both trying to find the truth, and we are the victims of people who don't want anyone to find that truth. So Rick, you know, when I spoke to you today, I asked you if you would come on and come clean about some things, or just if we could put the whole truth out there. And you said yes, and that's why, as I've said before, that we earn each other's respect in these ways, and so I guess going back, let's talk about how this all started, because those of you who have witnessed these channels, you know, it's been a long haul. Like you've noticed that we've had to fight some battles. And for a long time, Rick and I were fighting each other until we realized why. Because I told Rick, you know, the funny thing, Rick, as I look back, the only thing I can remember is saying gay Snay one time as a joke. I thought it was funny because it rhymes, you know. And I think Rick was doing a dance or something. And I thought, hey, on my next show, I'll say blah, 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 gay Snay and piss him off. It was sort of a poking at him, but this was before any of the crazy stuff. So I thought back and I said, well, wow, Snay, what caused you to attack me anyway? So what really happened? Well, and Rick explained to me what happened. And the funny thing is Rick didn't know, but I had already had about 500 screenshots sent to me by a particular individual describing exactly what had happened. And so when Rick told me the story, it all lined up because I had 500 screenshots of a whole 6 months of things. So I don't know, Rick, you got anything to say before we move on?
Well, to start with, I would never even really have even known anything about what you were saying as far as like the gay Snake thing or anything like that it was brought to my attention, and the same. Well, there was a couple of people doing it, but the one person in particular kept coming into my chats and talking about you and what you know, saying what you were supposedly saying about me and so forth. And we all know who I'm referring to now, of course. It's a guy that has a song that you sing around Christmas time. It's named after, he's named after that, I guess. But it's Thomas Frost, Frosty. He was repeatedly telling me things that you had said. And sometimes I would go and try and find these things in your live streams, and you didn't do me any favors because you had these long ass live streams, but I never seemed to find any of them. And then I was getting, as I've told you before, everybody knows this really. For a while there, I had a pretty good run of getting interesting information on the case, stuff that wasn't in the news yet. And then it would come out and people would be like, damn, I heard that from Snay. Well, I was getting all of that information from Mark Robert Cohen. All of that was coming directly from him. He gave me the F tree thing, the Ansus, and he gave me the fact that they didn't find anything in the search warrant that connected him to the crime except for the bullet thing. He gave me the thing about the phone leaving the area and then coming back. He was giving me all this information, and it was coming to me from the one person. This one source was where most of it was coming from, which was Mark. And then at some point, something came up between Skip and I. And unasked for, he sent me a bunch of stuff about Skip. Things that, compromising things that he had supposedly said, conversations he supposedly had, which could have been manipulated, and pictures and stuff. And I said, what's this? And he said, oh, ammo, help you get even or something like that. And I was like, okay. And then he sent me information about you. And I know for a fact the person that facilitated that was Thomas Frost. He's the one that told Mark to send me that information. Both Frost and Mark wanted you doxed, but they didn't want to do it themselves. So they told me about all these people you were doxing and all these things that you said, and I put your name out there, So, and I did it basically because they asked me to do it. It was transactional, they share a lot of stuff with me. And
so they you felt you owed them favors, and they went ahead and used you for that favor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny.
At the time, I didn't think anything of it.
Huh?
At the time, I didn't think anything of it, because we hated each other,
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that I said this to you when we were discussing this. I said that, what's odd about that to me is at the time, I literally didn't know who Mark Cohen was. I had zero knowledge of his existence whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder, how odd that is that someone you don't even know exists hates you so much that they would do something like that.
So how did Mark get involved in that way? Isn't that strange? And now, of course, these two guys are best buddies, got their little show together and everything, I hear that Mark and Frost are actually tied right now with Greeno and Casey for a couple of the year. So, I congratulate them and everything. But, it seems odd now that they're just so buddy and everything after the only connective tissue between you and Mark was Frost.
Yeah. So I mean, once
Frost got a
again,
lot of
Frost.
help.
Now, see, I'd like to stop here because I'm going to pull some receipts for this to show you guys. But what's interesting to me now, I made a. All right, I'll back it up. Frost has been obsessed with attacking me for a good year and a half, 2 years.
It gets that way.
Yeah, obsessed. Really, in a concerning way, but there's others. Okay, there's Bossy has been obsessed. There's Jinx has been obsessed, and obviously Mark Robert, because why would you? And the thing is that it's never stopped. The funny thing, so with this group, I coined a term for this community, the troll farm. And the reason I did so is because it became really apparent to me that there's one group operating about 100 accounts. Okay, when I say that, I'm not speaking lightly. Okay, as I've gone through the past 2 years of all the figuring it out and stuff, it's what I realize is that these people, for some reason, they're obsessed with destroying me, and they love to use fake accounts. So what they do, there's like a public mask, okay, and that's under their own names, and everything else is done under the fake accounts. So under their own names, they'll only do stuff behind the scenes like they did with you. Okay, like so what they did with you, finding my info, sending you my address, pictures of my house, my kids' names, and all of this shit that they do, they'll do it behind the scenes as Thomas Frost, Mark Cohen, and these others. But on the YouTubes, on the social media, they'll only do it behind fake accounts.
Right. Yeah.
And so we call them out on it. Yeah, we don't. So that'd be a good question to ask you. Do you have knowledge of them using fake accounts at all?
Oh yeah.
Because they're going to say they don't. The whole story is we don't do that.
I actually have, or had, I won't have after this, but I actually had access to one of Frost's fake accounts. He wanted to give it to me so that I could post in places where I was blocked.
Oh yeah.
And I think I actually used it like twice, and I thought, this doesn't feel right. I like to have my name and my face attached to what I say. And I tell people I don't use alts. And, one or two times I used it, I thought, no, this isn't right. I don't like this. And I didn't do it again,
Well, part of the gaslighting and the thing is the crazy making. So what they've tried to do, they knowingly will use these 50 to 100 accounts to torment me and others relentlessly. And then they'll go and on the public face, they'll totally gaslight and say, I don't use a fake account. I've never used a fake account. I have one fake account and I've said what it is, So it's just infuriating because it makes everyone think you're crazy because you're saying, no, there's 5 people using 100 accounts to torment me for the past 2 years. And people think you're crazy.
And you know how they do it. One of their fake accounts will say, oh, well, Prof is A and B. And then you'll have another of their fake accounts go, Prof is A and B because of this. And then another one will say, I heard that a long time ago. And not only is Prof A and B, but he's C.
Well, and they do it the other way too. You know what else they do? So they do it as slander. So they will do exactly what you just said. They'll say, I heard this about Prof, or Prof is stupid, or Prof is a creepy guy. So they'll all come behind each other and do that. It'll be 5 or 6 of them all behind each other. But then they'll do it the other way too. They'll go into their own channel and say, "Oh, Frost is just it's like the best channel, nothing but facts and
Yeah.
logic." And then you'll see 3 or 4 other accounts, and it's so it's become a pattern. But let's go to motive, because look at what I got here is a conversation between, right here is Jinx, Frost, and Frost in the red square says, "We won." So this is after the dox. Okay, this is after the doxing. This is the moment of the doxing. We won. He's smart. If he's smart, he'll shut the F up. Jinx says, "I'm waiting for the rage." Thomas says, "He might just drop off the face of the earth." Okay. And then this is Thomas saying, "Rick just dropped his name. Snay docs. I commented that Prof's Moss has been harassing us for months under different dozens of accounts just to shut them up. Didn't name her. We won. It's over." All right. And then we have Jinx here. Look at Jinx. "I offered to mod for Snay. I would not be commenting, but I'll bounce bitches out. The other mods would see it's me, but I'm sure they'll keep quiet. If not, I'll stop bouncing people." Yeah, this is how they plan to use your channel and to use the wrenches in your channel to control the conversation in the chat. Okay, and this is here's some more of their shit, like relax, give them an hour, Snay's gonna bury them. I'm so excited, we should do a watch party. So, it was just a whole plan here. Okay, and this is them showing my house. This is showing the house. This is talking about my son and the age gap between my 2 kids. Yes, there's an age gap because I decided once I raised the first one, I decided to raise another one. So there's an age gap. I don't see what's the controversy, Troll Farm. Let's see.
There's a 16-year age gap between my youngest and her next.
This is looking at my house here, making sure they got the address right. This is just the type of shit we've been dealing with. Looking at my book, I'm an author of a book. I'm sorry, guys. Yes, I am an author of a book. It's a highly wonderful exercise book for young musicians. Here's my looking at the inside of my house, yeah, by spying on my Instagram. So good luck. You see my inside. You see, does my house look good, or does it look like a meth layer?
That's right out of Breaking Bad, dude. I hate to tell you.
Yeah, sorry guys. I actually sweep my floors periodically. Sorry. Let me see if anything else here. Let's see. Like I said, all my things got out of order, so I'm a little disheveled here. Oh yeah, this is this is Thomas trying to wiggle out of accountability for it, saying you didn't do anything, we didn't do anything. Rick and Mark Robert found it. This is what they want to do. We can't be held accountable for the actions of other adults. Maybe Snay needs to do a show about Lauren as well, because that's another thing. Okay, let me talk about oh yeah, I want to put this one up because we bring evidence when we make accusations, and so this is Mark Robert. Mark Robert's sending my name, my birth date, my information to Thomas, and Thomas says, "Guys, I got his name." We're not making shit up here, you guys. I want you to see Mark Robert got it for me. Jinx says, "Step back, you did, this is amazing." Rick Snay and Mark Robert got it. Rick said he's doxing him live tonight. Now, this is the same guy. Okay, so this is the same guy right here that will post stuff like this.
And this is the reason he tries to say, well, Snay and I were okay. He was my friend until I decided that Richard Allen was guilty. No, he thought Richard Allen was guilty all along. It was when he posted this. This is why I said, nah, I'm done with you, pal.
So this is a guy who shot the guy who assaulted. So he assassinated the guy who assaulted his young daughter, as far as I recall, right?
I think it might have been his son.
Or his son.
It was his karate instructor.
Yeah, so this guy in the maroon or the burgundy shirt is a perpetrator of some sort of crime against this other guy in the white hat's child. So the guy in the white hat waited in the airport, and when he saw the guy, he pulled out a pistol and shot him right on sight. Okay, but Frost is saying, if these nut jobs let Richard Allen walk, remember Gary Plauché. So in other words, we're going to do some vigilante justice.
And that's not the only one that's saying that either.
No, well, I got here's the thing I'm going to bring up for you now, because you're right about that. Because what do you know? I found something the other day, Snay.
What did you find?
So I happened to be listening to a gentleman's channel, and he posted this excerpt from Anthony Greeno, in which Anthony says, I don't give a fuck who you are. If you're a cop, you can arrest me afterwards, but I'm going to crack your ass because you know why Abby and Libby would want me to knock you the fuck out. I care so much about these girls in that case that I could not stomach the fact that these people might cause this dude to walk. And if they do, I'll finish it. I'll promise. I'll finish it. I'll make sure this case ends with the right justice.
First of all, Greeno would never have the balls for something like that. So I don't think we have to worry about that. But the very fact that he's saying that, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It really is. This guy, this is a man who threatened to kill my daughter. And, he told me that I would watch her choking on her own blood. And as she's choking on her blood, she'll be saying, Daddy, why did you make this man do this to me? This is the kind of stuff that Greeno was saying.
Right. Oh, I remember that was a horrible, intimidating post that he did to you and your daughter, and with the gore of the victim of some. Here's one he made.
He's threatening to stab people in the neck. Isn't that strange?
Now look what he says here. The truth is, I will do it if you deserve it. This is, check this out. The dangerous situations, I mean, people like the Prof, people like Rick Snay, yep, they deserve to be shot in the head. I will tell you that they deserve someone to come up there and shoot them in the head for the shit that they do. Shot in the head for the shit that they do to people, and what they deserve. And what's another one here? Let's see. He says, I don't give a whatever who thinks I'm right or wrong, that they deserve it. I can yield the end of a blade right at your ass. Okay, but that's not it. That's not it, Snay. Hold on, because we got stuff like this. This is Tommy Frost to me in my coming in the backyard of StreamYard here, backstage. He says, "I'll kill you. I'll break your kneecaps. I'll do it. Let's live stream when I wander down your street and crack your kneecaps. I'll gladly hurt you. I'll beat the fuck out of you. I'll beat your brains out. I hope the world gets to see your eyes pop out of your socket. I'll gladly hurt you. I'll beat the fuck out of you. I'll beat your brains out. I'll break your kneecaps and I will kill you. I'll take joy. I'll put your head on a pike." This is Tommy Frost.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that, I would probably not even fear, I would run away from Vern Troyer before I'd run away from Frost. I don't, this guy, when he tries to act tough, it's just so stupid,
Well, there's more. I'm sorry, Rick, but there's a little more because there's one other. Because I would be remiss if I did not cover this most recent thing that I don't think even you have heard. So let me read it for you because this one right here, it should be of concern to everyone. Let me see if I can locate it here because I'm kind of thousands of receipts here I'm trying to juggle. Let's see. But there's one here that's just, I could not believe my ears the other day. And when you hear this, you won't believe your ears. Let's see. You know, I like putting it on the screen just to prove that it actually happened. But I could read it. I could read it without. But let's see. See if I can find the exact spot.
Well, you're looking for that. I wanted to say I did notice Noe talking earlier, and I appreciate him coming clean with that about serenity and everything. And of course, you know, I even said on my live stream that I never believed any, you know, that Noe was messing with any kids. I don't believe that about him. And I told people that, you know, that thing that I made was just simply to mess with him, you know. And even Noe will tell you guys, neither Noe nor I did anything to disrupt the proceedings in the court that day. Not at all. You know, we were ready to just handle it like men afterwards and everything. But they kicked us out of the courthouse. And it's odd that, you know, I brought this up on my channel the other day. It's odd that when you have a proceeding for like a protective order, they will send one person out first, then they'll send the other person out. If they were so afraid something was going to happen between Noe and I, why did they throw us both out at the same time into the front yard there? You know, but, you know, Noe knows neither one of us did anything to be thrown out. And I certainly didn't do any of the things that Gull claims I did. So, you know, right there, I can attest that she is a liar.
All right,
No,
I found
the search on the 13th.
well, you Noe. You see, I think one thing that none of us realized as time progressed is that none of this was of our own doing. There were agent provocateurs here. Okay, so Noe
just said Thomas Frost looks like Chewbacca.
Same with Noe. You know, there were people, what they were doing with Noe, sending Noe things to infuriate him up from you, and sending you things from Noe to infuriate you. So setting you against each other, putting you at each other's throats.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get to that because I want you guys to see where this is coming from. But right now, I will read this particular thing. I'm trying to pull up on the screen so that you can know I'm not lying. Because this is about truth. This is not about lying. Okay. Here, it's ready, but let me see. Pull it up here. This right here is actually astonishing. And to think that people have the gall to say something like this, it's really all right. Let's see. Here we go. Come on, baby. There we go. Now, what this is Mark Cohen. I wonder if when there's a trial, I wonder if these guys are going to show up, you know, just be there, stare these guys down. Imagine how intimidating that would be for these guys, that these guys spent, you know, the better part of a year trying to say that they were ritualistic child killers, right? Yeah, how intimidating would that be if these men just showed up at trial in the courtroom and literally just fucking stared them in the fucking down? That would throw them off. That would throw them off. Uh, so Patrick Westfall, Brad Holder, show up at trial, okay? You're not going to be able. You're not going to be able to sue these guys or take these guys to any court. Show up at trial, look these guys right in the eye, okay? Throw them off. Yep, okay. Now's your turn to really, take away their thunder. And there's no way they would be comfortable saying anything in reference to anything with you sitting right there. I highly recommend that you do. Somebody save them a seat. One of these people who gets there at 5 a.m. Save Brad Holder a spot in line. Yeah, if I would get there at 5 a.m., I'd be like, hey, this is for you, Brad.
And I've said before, what are these people going to look like when the truth comes out? Especially the other night, Frank Meister and Kristen had Pat Westfall on. Who else is it? Is it Sleuth that's had Westfall on?
Oh, yeah.
I doubt Westfall's going to show up for court. You're right, Rebecca. I don't think Brad would either. I can't even get Westfall to come on my show, man. I mean, what's wrong? What is he afraid of? I'm an old man. Look at me, I'm old. Grandpa won't hurt you. Grandpa won't hurt you, Pat. You coming on Delphi After Dark. I'm not going to ask you those softball questions, though.
This is where they're discussing parking in a black SUV and flying drones over Lauren's house to intimidate her. Okay. And for years, trying to look for the one in which they wish suicide, because the next one is that I'm looking for is where they wish that she commits suicide because she's not going to be able to handle the shit that they're doing to her. So I'm looking to pull that one up. So, like I said, guys, all my screenshots got out of order and I had everything perfectly sequenced. But this is the way they have been doing things. I wish I was making it up. This has been going on for years. It makes me wonder with people like, you take, for instance, Matt Sullivan. Did they do this to Matt Sullivan?
They messed with him big time.
Who else have these people gone after? Clutch, Julia, True Crime Design.
Oh,
I mean, all these people that have stopped covering the case.
Yeah, who was that girl? The young girl with the soft voice that just always had just the relaxing videos. They destroyed her. Went after her. Can't think of what her name is. She. I used to talk to her all the time, and I can't even get a hold of her now. What is her name? Let me see here.
I'm looking now for. Let's see.
Somebody knows who I'm talking about. Dang it!
I can't see anything here. Let's see. Is this it? Hey, does this look familiar to you?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I'll explain this to the listeners. Because this is another thing they do. And we know who this is. Okay, we have figured out who this is. You guys are something else, man. This is the
one. Yeah, this is the one that. Let me see. Oh, this isn't the one I thought it was. This is. Who did they send this to?
I'll read it to you. This went out to a large number, almost all Delphi creators, except me and Joe Lewis. So this one here says, Delphi Dirty, concerning content, harassment, and doxing. This is what they do. They flip the script. So everything they do, they try to flip the script. So they say selected Delphi content creators. Okay, so this went out to like Sleuth and you and a bunch of Delphi creators, but not to me because I'm mentioned. Okay, so it says we want to make you aware of some videos that we believe may be concerning for you. We do not.
I remember this now.
We
Yeah,
do
yeah.
not push narratives, but provide raw video from channels being monitored for harassment, doxing, and cyberbullying. Our intent is to spread awareness of online harassment and some heated exchanges that may be valuable to you. Some of these artifacts may not contain threats or harassment, but for various reasons, including litigation, we included them for harassment, for awareness. These are unlisted playlists. At this time, we are keeping the videos unlisted in an effort to not fuel the cycle of harassment. If harassment actions continue with certain channels, we may consider posting them publicly. We realize there are a lot of other channels participating in harassment. We can only cover so much at once. We will continue to collect information and share additional artifacts as needed. We strongly encourage all creators to be responsible and not encourage cyberbullying. We do not want to add your channel to our list. Let's work together and find justice for the victims, Delphi Dirty. And they list Prof, Joe Lewis, and Mike Phillips hunting evil.
Hunting evil, yeah. Yeah, that I remember that now, yeah. I thought this was the letters. Who wrote the letter to the court about the doxing and stuff that was going on? I can't remember who that was.
I don't know if I've seen that. I don't know.
I'll see if I can find it. If I have it, I'll send it to you. But yeah, I remember this one.
Yeah. So
that was a big thing. Was that they would always try to enlist me in this campaign against the cyberbullying thing, and I would always tell them, look, I got enough of my problems. Okay, I got all these things going on right now that I have to take out. So.
I guess I wanted to cover this portion because these are the cyber bullies. These are the cyber stalkers. These are the instigators, troublemakers behind the scenes who for years have been trying to run people off of YouTube.
And like Noe said, let's not give Chris Long a pass here.
Who do you think you're looking at right here? Okay.
Oh yeah, that's
so. But I think we made our point here that we've been dealing with this for some time, and there's no question that it. Okay, let me bring this down. So there's no question that it's happened. Okay, there's no excuse making. There's no dodging the bullet. The thing is, you've done it. It was you and only you. You've escaped accountability for it. And you've tried to make people kill themselves. You've already got one body floating behind you. You tried to run people off. You demanded passwords for people's channels to try to control their narrative and their channels. So it's not like it never happened. It's all happened, and it still happens. I could show you today. I receive receipts on a daily basis. I'm still being harassed. Okay? My kids, you make videos of us. We don't want. Let me ask you this. Ashley Schaefer, Delphi Dummies. Why do you never see their faces? Why?
Because they don't want you to know who they are.
Hello? Because guess what? Rick shows his face. I show my face. I showed my face from day one. Why don't you see the cyberbullies' faces? Where's Ashley Schaefer?
They're probably not as handsome as us.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's why they're not parents, because you see, it takes a guy that can reproduce to make.
Yes, they can actually have a woman get interested in them.
Yeah. So I want to transition to the leaks because there's a whole lot of what I'm getting at, Rick, is these let me pull this down, because I think our listeners don't understand. Because what they tried to do was set up Baldwin and Rozzi.
Mm-hmm.
I think what our listeners don't understand is that these same people were responsible for the leaks, were behind the leaks, were at the center of the leaks, caused the leaks. Okay? So we're just going to let the truth flow, because we're fixing this community. We're not going to let it continue to downward spiral. So there's a lot of receipts here, and we're going to talk about the leaks, and I'm going to let Rick talk about the leaks. But before we start, I want to present this to Rick because I don't think he's seen it. But this is Jinx and Thomas discussing the leaks. And so in green you see Meow, and so Jinx says, so there's the leak. Meow says, Thomas, how much did you send Rick Snay? Just the parts you have. Jinx says, I heard that Fig leaked it to Sleuth, who also let some of it. Thomas says, Rick Snay said he got 3 from that Mark Roberts guy, but that it was Fig who leaked it. Because, and then Meow says, because it's certainly not all out there. So let's start from this starting point. Rick Snay said he got 3 from that Mark Roberts guy, but it was Fig who leaked it. And Courtney saying, I also heard Fig leaked it to Sleuth. So you got any comment on that one?
I never at any time have ever told anyone that Mark Robert gave me those pictures. No one.
So that was
I
Thomas.
got 4 of them, and they weren't.
I'm sorry, let me bring this down. So that's Thomas not telling the truth about you saying you got him from Mark Robert.
Oh, Thomas wouldn't lie.
All right, let's see.
Yeah, I mean, and you notice they're talking about it like it's something that they knew was coming, that they, they're not surprised by it at all.
No, there's no surprise. It's matter of fact discussing it, and I'm trying to. There's a lot more. All my shit is scrambled, so I'm sorry that it's not Prof style to be not organized here. But let me see. What I was trying to do is I'm trying to pull up the court documents regarding the leaks, because that's where a good place to start is, I think, Rick. And that's what I'd like us to start from there. Okay. Because we're going to address everything that was said, everything that's known. Oh, yeah, let me bring this up. Okay, so it's this group. So let's see. Oh, man, my vision is not too good either. I have trouble seeing the small screen. Let's see. Let's see if I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe it's this one. Before we get to the leaks, I wanted to finish with this because I just saw this that I forgot to pull up. This is another one. Okay, so this is another Mark Cohen. Someone gave Becky Patty an Ashley Schaefer sticker, right? Or a couple Ashley Schaefer stickers. No way. Yeah, and wait. Becky said that she really likes Ashley Schaefer. And she brought up Delphi Dummies too, by name, just like they really enjoy those channels and stuff. Shit, I fucking love the Patties, and like I do this for them, and like, then Becky at the hearings is like, yeah, I really appreciate Schaefer and Dummies. And it's just like that's what we doing it for, man. I'll gladly take the heat for them as long as it's me they're coming after and not the Patties. They can go fuck themselves. So this is what I mean by bringing Becky Patty into their bullshit with Ashley Schaefer, Delphi Dummies, Mark Robert. Come on, let's be real. Mark Robert, Tommy Frost. How dare you bring Becky Patty into your cyber stalking bullshit? You're implicating her in a crime.
Yeah.
Not very wise. All right, so I'm almost there. I'm here. Sorry, pulling up this. All right, here we go. I found it. It's the verified emergency motion for continuance. You see all the shit they've caused? Let's get to it. People would never believe this in a million years. Where is it? Is this it? Yeah, that's it. On March 11, 2024, Counsel first received recorded interview of Tahara Einfeld, Robert Fortson, Rick Snay, Murder Sheet, Mark Robert Cohen, and Kyra DeBruin, as well as the omitted attachments to the report. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead. Recorded interview of Ms. Einfeld revealed that she recognized that Libby's sweatshirt was on Abby. She confirmed that she received photos from a Tyler Carpenter, and there was some connection to a screenshot from George Nye, a former LE officer. This was the first counsel had heard of these people, and the first time he had heard anything about Miss Einfeld. She also confirmed that she had corresponded with Mr. McClelland. She indicated she had been part of a small Facebook group, Reddit group, and a YouTube channel, as well as a public Discord server with private chats. Yes, that's the one that Fig and Mark Robert and others were in. And we know you were in there, and we got all the receipts. And I mean hundreds. 1.7 pounds. If you guys ever wondered what the 1.7 pounds were that you mocked me over for the longest, it was your entire Discord. So she also revealed that a person known to her had hired a private investigator to follow McClelland. She also identified other persons possibly involved in the dissemination of photographs and named a Paul Manion, which is another name counsel had never heard. Lastly, she agreed to provide screenshots to First Sergeant Holman, who thereby took that screenshot and all those screenshots, threw it in the trash. Okay, because Holman never went to Tyler Carpenter to figure out what actually was his source of the crime scene photos. During that interview with Robert Fortson, he invoked his right to counsel more than half a dozen times. And, Rick, half a dozen times. First Sergeant Jerry Holman acknowledged that he had a Fourth Amendment right to counsel, even though that's the wrong amendment, but continued to question him, even though he had invoked his right to counsel half a dozen times. First Sergeant Holman referenced a guy from Texas, Mark Robert, who we now know as Mark Robert Cohen, and a K. Smith, which was a name counsel had never been made aware of in preparing for contempt proceedings. There's no indication that Ms. Smith was ever interviewed by First Sergeant Holman either. First Sergeant Holman told Fortson that the judge isn't very happy. Yes, he pressured that guy 1,000,000 times. He also told him if he didn't give a statement, he would be obstruction. That would be obstruction of justice and possibly contempt of court, and he would be arrested and go to jail. That's what he told him. When Mr. Fortson indicated he was not comfortable speaking with him until he was able to speak with attorneys, First Sergeant Holman told him if he didn't cooperate and delete whatever he had, that if he called the judge and told her he's not willing to cooperate, I'm going to make a phone call and see if she wants to issue that order or not. This is when First Sergeant Holman also referenced that Mr. Fortson could be charged with obstruction of justice and contempt. First Sergeant Holman then said, let me call the judge real quick and we'll go from there. So then he leaves the room to fake him out.
Mm-hmm.
Then he returned and told Fortson that he had talked to the prosecutor, and if he was not willing to turn over the pictures or information, basically there would be consequences. First Sergeant Holman also said that the judge had said if they have photographs, get them and get information about where they got them from. First Sergeant Holman then told Fortson his lack of cooperation was going to ruin Richard Allen's rights to a fair trial. That's manipulative. And was really going to mess some things up for him. Then he said, doesn't bother me any because it's all bullshit in my opinion. First Sergeant Holman also told Mr. Fortson that this is some serious shit and the judge is adamant that he get the photos out of circulation. Mr. Fortson then confirmed that he didn't have anything like that in his possession, and there was nothing for him to delete or anything like that at all. Rick Snay was interviewed by telephone. Mr. Snay indicated that he had received 4 photos from Kyra DeBruin, who you call Kira.
Yes.
Mr. Snay also indicated that he had heard that other people had received photos from Mark Robert and Kay Smith. Mr. Snay indicated he had gotten the photographs Thursday, but no date was provided in his interview. First Sergeant Holman told Mr. Snay that the judge was very adamant that if any got released by anybody, she was going to issue contempt of court. March 13, 2024 was the first time counsel heard the name Kira DeBruin. In an interview with Kira, she indicated that her source was through Reddit from a lordless warrior, who is Robert Fortson, who she believed was Ron something. Yes, probably Ron Logan. First Sergeant Holman was asked if it could be Robert Fortson, and she indicated that sounded familiar. She never firmly identified Robert Fortson. Whether Lordless Warrior was Ron someone or Robert Fortson, Mrs. DeBruin indicated that person had deleted an entire conversation. Yes, because he was freaking out. He deleted everything. He also begged Mark to delete everything. First Sergeant Holman told Ms. DeBruin that the judge was pretty upset and said if they do get shared, she was going to issue warrants for contempt of court. Counsel has been provided with no information identifying Lordless Warrior as Robert Fortson. The true identity of Lordless Warrior needs to be investigated. Mark Robert Cohen in his interview indicated his source was Robert Fortson. Well, there's a whole lot of fingerprint pointing at Robert Fortson, isn't there?
Yeah,
and that Fortson had once told him to delete everything. Mr. Cohen had the impression that Fortson was an attorney. Mr. Cohen also indicated Fortson made a $500 donation to his daughter's Make-A-Wish fund. Well, why didn't he say that Tyler Carpenter made a $2,000 donation to his wish fund? And why didn't he say that one of the family members donated money? And why didn't he say that one of Murder Sheet's associates donated money? First Sergeant Holman told Mr. Cohen that the judge had told the prosecutor, who had told him that if anybody doesn't produce these or isn't willing to delete or give it up, she's going to issue contempt of court. Murder Sheet were interviewed. They provided, they cooperated. They're smart. We're going to skip ahead.
Yeah, Murder Sheet, they cooperated, yeah.
Mr. McClellan indicated he would try to get screenshots if they exist when he had time. Mr. McClellan didn't give a shit. Okay? Neither did Holman, because the whole objective was to point the finger at Baldwin and Rozzi. Okay?
Yeah, and Kay Smith, I don't know how that name came up because I never mentioned it.
Oh yeah, let's discuss. Let's take a break and discuss before we continue. Tell us about it. What are your comments on all of that? It's a lot, I know.
I never mentioned Kay Smith. I don't know where that came from. And she and I have talked about it, I got the pictures from one person and one person only. And I told, basically one person, but it was Kevin and Anya. The only reason I told them, I was going to work at the pub and I happened to be on the door and they were texting me. And Anya texted me and said, hey, be careful. There's stuff going around that may or may not be crime scene photos. And I texted back and said, yeah, I got those. Now, Murder Sheet says they got them on Tuesday, that Mark got a hold of them on Tuesday and gave them the pictures. Then I got them on Thursday. And I know exactly when I got them. I got them at 4:20, and that's like my favorite number. So, I knew when I got them, 4:20 p.m. on Thursday. So Murder Sheet had them for 2 days before they decided to reach out to me and tell me, hey, be careful. There's some stuff going around, just hours after I got them. Now, this means that somehow they knew I had them. And I promise you, Kira didn't say anything. Somehow they knew I got them. And somehow that next day, at like 9 in the morning, I got a message from Rebecca Lynn Dunaway from one of the big Facebook Delphi groups. And she said, I hear you got some crime scene photos. And I said, yeah, how the hell did you hear that? I haven't told anybody. And as I mentioned on my channel before, I have very, very good reason to believe that Rebecca Lynn Dunaway is Becky Patty. And that kind of messed with my head a little bit because I thought, whoa, this is just going too far. Like I said, I never say the family's involved or anything like that. But man, there are some questions I need answered. And, it's just strange that law enforcement seemed to find out, Nick the Mick, I can say it, folks, I'm Irish. He says he heard at like 4 in the morning from a member of one of the families that I had these pictures. And he went to Gull and told her. And that's when the thing came out about local contact creator. That's what she called me, local contact creator, Rick Snay. So yeah, these is this K? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, see,
Yeah,
let me comment on her comment, because this is my biggest problem with it, Rick. And I'm going to give you the floor for a little longer on this, because my biggest problem in all of this, those involved have not told the truth about it. They have not taken accountability at all whatsoever. They've remained silent, pretended it never happened, or just poo-pooed it. And the thing is that we have a dead person, and you tried to use it to throw the defense counsel off of another person who could be put away for life. So how much would it hurt to tell the fucking truth about what happened with him? How much could it hurt?
This Dick Redshirt person, that's considered child porn and very morbid. I'd never want to see it. And it's so wrong that they've been passed around. Can't even. The problem is, though, Rick, Dick, whatever, it's not considered child porn. For one thing, only one of the children were nude and the sensitive areas were covered up. So it was not child porn. Porn of any kind is designed to entice and excite you. These pictures are not for that reason. And talking about, you wouldn't want to see them. The problem is, if you are interested in this case, you should see them. And I'll tell you,
you do want to see them, because they show clearly that those sticks are formed into runic-like formation.
Exactly. There's absolutely no way possible that's anything else.
If you see those photos, there's one takeaway that's beyond any other. Those sticks were put there with purpose, intentionally, and not made to cover the bodies.
Yep.
And there's a potential second layer, which is that Libby's the primary target because of how disrespected her body is. So you look at those, you're going to know Libby was a target, and you're going to know those sticks are absolutely formed intentionally by whoever did what they did.
And even further, Prof, you're going to know that Elvis Fields was telling the truth the day after he was in Delphi. The day the bodies were discovered, he told his sister he put sticks on Abby's head and gave her horns because she was a little troublemaker. And one of the pictures I was sent, you see Abby's head from here up, and you see these sticks that come up. I said they look more like antenna.
They're tiny little twigs, yes, like antenna.
Yeah. Well, the twigs they have are like, it's almost like a crown of thorns. The other ones, the long ones, they're long, and they look like, I showed a bunch of pictures of people from Nordic mythology, like Loki and Balder and some of those guys. And these tricksters and demons, they all have these long, straight horns. And that's exactly what these look like.
Wow.
And that was Elvis Fields. He mentioned that the 14th of February.
Well, what's interesting to me, because I have two parts to that, because what Elvis Field said, she's a troublemaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Before these crime scene photos were leaked, I was already looking at Norse and Odinist and mythological concepts of wild women, or what's called the wild woman. And
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting is when I got into this one corner of the internet about the wild woman as a mythological concept, and exactly what a wild woman was a very nice, beautiful rendition of a woman in the woods, but with like deer antlers or some kind of horns. And that was a rendition of the wild woman. And that was already in my brain. So when I read that Elvis had said that she was a troublemaker, I equated the two, because what is wild woman? A troublemaker. It's,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very interesting that you say that, because yeah, it makes you almost wonder, was he the one, or did he put those there, or did he witness whoever put them there saying, yeah, she's a little troublemaker? Because there's no way that you would classify her as a wild woman by indicating those horns, and then have this guy who's not really all there running around saying she's a little troublemaker.
Well, see, and that point to me, especially the thing about having them spit on the phone or on one of the bodies, you know, um, that is to me, they were trying to set him up. They were trying to make him the patsy.
Yeah,
But Carroll
he
County
had
was
something
so
on him.
inept.
Mhm.
Yeah, Carroll County was so inept that they somehow lost that evidence. That might have been the sample that was on top of the car when the woman took off and it blew off of the car. We don't know what evidence that was, but we do know it did happen.
So let's be clear. Uh, so you received the crime scene photos. Was Kyra DeBruin the only source you received them from?
Mm-hmm.
And what was the only source you sent them from?
Do what now?
Who were the sources, or from Kyra DeBruin to you?
Mm-hmm.
Who did you send them out to, uh, as they were, like, as they were?
I didn't send them to anybody. I mean,
Okay, so regarding Julie Melvin, then,
mm-hmm.
is
I'm
do
telling you,
you
man. I'm telling you, man. It's easy to fake an email, and I did not send her. I admit I showed them to her.
Well, that's going
But
to
I
always be
didn't.
so interesting, but there's so much. I mean, there's just so much conflict. Let me ask you this about those also. There's been this widespread rumor that there are actually 9 crime scene photos, or there's a group of 9 photos in
Yeah, and I
which,
can verify that's true.
okay, good. See, we're getting somewhere. How about this? What I was told is there's one set that we have all seen, which is sort of like very poorly taken, poorly rendered cell phone photos. Bad
Yeah, they're
quality.
like pictures of pictures.
Huh?
They're pictures of pictures.
Pictures of pictures, right.
They're pictures that were taken from a computer screen, because the picture of the top of Libby or Abby's head, you can see a cursor on it.
Okay, yeah. And well, the thing that bothers me is I've not seen 9. So I wonder, what are those others? Because I've heard, it's come down to me that those others were actually taken on a tabletop and are very nice looking.
Yeah,
What
and
do you have to
that's
say?
Murder Sheet has those.
Okay, so
Because
let me ask you this.
Kevin
How
told me
does
about the pictures,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and
You're turned down a bit. I didn't hear you.
Kevin told me about those pictures. He mentioned the pictures that were laid out on the desktop, and it was almost like he was surprised those aren't the ones I had, because he was talking about them, and I said, I don't think we're talking about the same thing here. you know. And he said something about the pictures taken from pictures laying on a desktop. And I told him, I said, no, I don't think so. Not the ones I have. The color was off on a couple of them, like you said, they were low quality.
Yeah, well, I wonder then. See, you see what it's smelling like? Can I just go ahead and speculate?
Sure, yeah.
So my speculation is this. My speculation is that the first set that we all have was what was being sold on the dark web and what had been out there for more than a year.
It's very possible, yeah.
Okay. My further speculation is that the clean set on the tabletop that would make you get up to 9 would be what Westerman went in there and took to set up Baldwin and Rozzi, and to cover for the fact that there were photos on the dark web being sold.
That's pretty good speculation there, bud.
Okay. They get 2 for 1. They cover the asses and obfuscate the concept of crime scene photos being sold, and they get to set up Baldwin and Rozzi, get them thrown off because they're good attorneys.
That's good speculation there. I never thought about that.
Because, see, we're not retards here. We know that there are 9 photos. Some are nice that would look like you would take in a lawyer's office. Some are shitty that look like they've been passed around and rendered down and have distortion, almost like they've been passed around for 5 years.
Yeah. Right.
So is what really happened that people were profiting off these photos on the dark web, spreading them around to people who predate on children and love that kind of shit and buy gore and snuff films and that kind of bullshit and masturbate to that kind of shit? Fetishize crime scene photos of dead girls.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you send in Westerman to infiltrate Baldwin and Rozzi's office to take the ones that are obviously taken on their fucking desk.
Westerman, who is friends with Murder Sheet.
You see, we're here for truth only. And if our speculation leads to it, good. So everyone in the chat, go run and figure it out, because we don't know. All that I know is I've seen some that definitely don't come off of Baldwin's desk. Now, if you want to gaslight me about whether or not anything transpired on the dark web, let's go ahead and look at the screenshots I have from Robert Fortson. Because the ones from Robert Fortson, the quote doesn't sound very good. And if you're asking why I say dark web, I'll tell you why I say dark web. There's 3 reasons. Oh, shoot. It's going to be a lot to pull them up, but you know what? I'm not going to pull them up. I'll just talk about it because I don't want to waste much time. First of all, there's an interaction between you and Robert in a chat in which he references the Yubo app and says that these crime scene photos were found in a very dark place on the dark web. Secondly, there's someone named Peggy O who alleges they were floating around the dark web. Thirdly, there's someone we call Little Frankie who says that he actually researched it deeply, pulled IP addresses, and realizes that there were transactions. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at that. So, hey, Little Frankie, I wish you'd provide receipts. Anyone
I asked
you about this, I wish you'd provide receipts, because you have caused a catastrophe in this case of justice for Libby and Abby. And none of you are taking accountability. Rick's one of the only ones who's come up and answered.
Yeah, I don't I've asked Frank, hey, come on and show me what you can prove. That's what I want to see. But yeah, I was suspicious about Westerman because I remembered Anya and Kevin had interviewed him about the oh God, criminal network. That's okay. Anyway, yeah, criminal network just made a comment. It was kind of funny, and even Dick's laughing at it. But yeah, I don't trust Westerman. I don't trust I don't believe his story. I don't believe that Mark Robert Cohen got the pictures from Fortson. I think he got them from Westerman.
Well,
and I think the ones that I like your theory. I think the ones that we all have, like you said, those are the ones that were possibly floating around for a while, and then the other 5 are the new ones. And one of those 5, I believe, is the F tree one.
Well, yeah, naturally. I think one is that sketch that we showed earlier, the disheveled young guy. One is the F tree. Then there's the 3 not too good ones of Abby and Libby. Now that leaves 5, so there's 4 more, right?
Right.
Those must be the 4 taken on the tabletop that we've all heard about and none of us have seen, except for me. And who else won't talk?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Sorry about that. Wrong one. Before we finish, I want to look at this because there's one more area we haven't touched, and this is something that, once again, the accountability is just totally lacking. Let's see. And I want it to be addressed. And so we have to do what we have to do on our own because people are not being honest. Like I said, this is called Armageddon for liars. We're in a battle for truth. The leaks escalated after the arrest of a suspect. There were 2 probable cause affidavits leaked before they were publicly available. There was a leak of information about a bullet at the scene and a gun at Mr. Allen's house. Gary Bodette, a.k.a. Fig, a.k.a. Fig Zolves, published these leaks on November 22nd, 2022. He claimed his source was an employee of Judge Gull. Bodette references this video in a Discord chat session on April 2nd, 2023 as proof his source works with the judge and that he had the Richard Allen PCA a week before the document was unsealed and made public. He said he knew the defense attorneys would be disqualified a week before they were and that it was a win.
Yeah, that was... remember, Murder Sheet had a not a live stream, but one of their podcasts where they talked about that they thought that the attorneys were going to be dismissed.
Yeah. There were leaks before Baldwin and Rozzi were appointed. On May 17, 2023, Fox 50 reported on facts contained in a PCA for the search of Ron Logan's residence filed March 17, 2023. Defense counsel had no access to the document, but law enforcement, court staff, and Murder Sheet did. On September 29th, 2022, an email was sent from Tony Liggett to Debbie Lowe of Carroll County Comic concerning the special prosecutor investigation into Hatch Act violations. This final decision was under seal, and the case is still currently either blocked or sealed from public view. On Gary Baudette's Fig Solves doing a live show about Richard Allen's arrest, he mentions that there will be evidence involving a bullet or a casing as part of the PCA. Baudette references this video in a Discord chat session on April 2nd, 2023 as proof that his source works with the judge and that he had had the Richard Allen PCA a week before the document was utilized. On November 22nd, 2022, Baudette, aka Fig Solves, who had I'm sorry. I skipped a page, but it says Baudette references this video in a big Discord chat. On November 22nd, 2022, Baudette, aka Fig Solves, who had communications with the prosecutor doing a live show about Richard Allen's arrest, mentioned that there will be evidence involving a bullet or bullet casing as part of the PCA. Baudette references this video in a Discord chat session April 2nd, 2023. As proof his source works with the judge and that he had the Richard Allen PCA a week before the document was unsealed and made public. Attorneys Baldwin and Rossi were not even appointed yet. Okay, so what are we getting at here? Oh, and here we go. I'm going to show this since I found it. These are the receipts of Robert discussing the dark web. Crime scene photos being on the dark web in a very evil, dark place. So, how do we end up with a bunch of YouTubers, all who are adamant that Richard Allen is the lone wolf killer of Abby and Libby, all who are super friendly with Nick McClelland and the judge's employees, saying things like, I gave Nick everything. Nick is my best friend forever. Nick asked me to delete everything. I'll ask Nick about it. How do we end up with these people behind all the leaks, documents, intel, crime scene photos, and every single one of them die hard? Richard Allen is guilty lone wolf killer. Nothing else to it. No one else involved. Don't question the family. Don't question law enforcement. Don't question the judge and prosecutor. But we're not incentivized in any way whatsoever. And we're also the troll farm, coincidentally. And that's what I got for the presentation, ladies and gentlemen. So it's all on Snay now. If you got questions for Rick, shoot your questions for me or Rick. We will gladly take your questions, and then we'll call it a night and let everyone go relax and drink some Kool-Aid and watch your Netflix or whatever you do.
I've tried to follow some of the comments in the chat tonight. It's kind of it's a luxury for me to be able to watch the chat, because when I'm in my channel, I can't follow the chat, because when I try to, I lose track.
I'm hardly looking at it, so but I'll try to go back and fish things out if there's anything you want to address.
You know, right now on my channel, I've been doing, and I'm going to continue doing the series. I've been going over the Frank's document, because there's a lot of people that haven't read it. Mm-hmm. So
let's address Michael, because I've seen him ask this several times. I know something about this.
I was just about to say that. Osbrook wants to know.
Maybe Rick knows too. So yes, I showed a receipt. If you look at my last show before this one, I actually showed the screenshot in which one person describes that very accurately. But so far, we know that we have two witnesses to a blood-curdling, horrific scream at the 2 a.m. hour. And maybe Rick knows more, maybe some people in the chat, but yes, Michael.
It's been something that has been brought up to me several times, and I've always just kind of blown it off like, no way, it's unbelievable. But now, I believe it more and more every day, because it would make perfect sense for, for the scream to happen at about that time, because that would have been the time probably that they were bringing Libby out for the ceremony.
Well, and a call was made to police, and police refused to come because they were busy. Okay, let me find it. I'll read it to you verbatim, because I know Michael's curious about that point. And like I said, maybe Rick or someone in the chat knows even more. But I'll read to you the actual evidence I have, because when you hear this, you're not going to have any questions about whether it happened or not. Okay. Me and my friend stayed out from 8 p.m. with the search party till the girls were found the next day. Around 2 a.m., we ended up calling the sheriff's office because we heard screams coming from the other side of the bridge. They said that all of the officers are busy at the moment and to call back if we hear anything else. We did not hear anything else until around 6 a.m. when a couple more people showed up. Around 9 is when we started seeing news crews again, and then we seen law enforcement. So someone asked, from the other side of the Monon High Bridge, you said you heard more at 6 a.m. Was this also screams, as in hollering, yelling, or horror? What type of screams? And she says, 6 a.m. was when more people showed up hollering the girls' names. 2 a.m. is when the horror screams happened, and we called the police to come help look again, but they were all busy at the moment. It sounded like screams that came from across the bridge and around the curve to the right of the river under the bridge. Okay? And there's even more, Michael. There's one more. Listen to this, because we have a member of the channel, and she may be here tonight. Her name is a God Thing. And Is a God Thing makes the following statement. Okay? I want you to really hear this, because I had heard this word on the street in the past year or two, but I had never had absolute black and white on this. This is what it says. This is a God Thing, and I, like I said, I've heard this as a circulating rumor in the past 2 years, but Is a God Thing a test that she personally witnessed? She says this: I saw something on the Carroll County scanner page. It was deleted immediately, and they came back and said the channels were crossed and the report was a different county. But there was a naked woman running out in the woods, bloody. Okay? Could be nothing. Could be genuinely a mistake, as the Carroll County blotter or scanner said. But Is a God Thing, who's someone you can pursue in the chat, claims to have witnessed it with her own 2 eyes. So could it have been Libby running around and witnessed by someone who called in? Just like the 2:13 a.m. screams? We don't know. But you have people out here claiming these things.
Someone asked me, I think it might have been Westy, asked me a personal question if I had patched things up with the lady, and I would assume that would mean Laura, my wife. We are working on things, and yeah, there we go. Yeah, we're working on things, and it's going to have a good outcome. We're still currently living in 2 separate places, but we do see each other quite a bit, and we are working on things. So.
Yeah, and Rick, I can attest to that, and I don't want to put Rick's business out too much, but I do speak with Rick fairly often, and many times, several times as I've spoken to Rick in the past month, Rick's often with Laura, and so I am also happy, very happy that they are that they are working on things, and the thing is, growth is beautiful for everyone, and love is beautiful for everyone. And I've said many times, I still deeply love the mother of my children, the mothers of my children, and sometimes you can't put things together, but sometimes you can. And so I wish Rick and Laura all the luck in the world. If that's the way that things are meant to be, that they come back together, and and I would hope that you'd wish the same for me and the mother of my child, because it's funny how love is part of the eternal nature of human beings. And so,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. I want to thank Cromley for the $1.99 super chat. Thank you so much for that lovely gesture, and also Heather. Thank you, Heather Brown. Fantastic duo and info. Well, we're trying to bring the truth to this community because it's been too much, and that brings us back full circle. You know, we're here because it's gotten too out of hand, and it's a group of people who are intentionally doing this. Dark Arts by Adrian says, "Happy for you both, Rick."
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys. So if you got any questions, I would say let's give it a couple more minutes, and we'll let Rick get out of here. And thank him so much for his time. So if you got questions for Rick, bring them now.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I think a lot of people, yeah, thank you, woman doing. I think a lot of people are not happy to see this split screen here. They don't want the two of us talking. So,
Well, what they don't know, we've been talking for months. So.
yeah.
Unfortunately. He said, "A well-said gentleman. You've both been a joy to listen to and watch." Well, I agree. I mean, I've really enjoyed getting to know Rick beyond the "stop doxing me, stop, calling me," what was it, Robbie Jim. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a much better way to be. Oh, you want to talk about the firearms expert? Well, we don't know much about him yet. So you guys are aware of this guy who's been busted.
Yeah, I think it's a different, same name sort of thing.
Well, he's in Marion County. Here's what we do know. I'll tell you what we do know. There's a guy in Marion County who was his name's Kevin Riley. I'll just put him out there. He's charged with about 10 counts of child exploitation, pornography, possession, and 1 count of distribution. He was a firearm tech at Marion County Crime Lab. And what he was doing is trading porn with his wife for CSAM. And it's kind of an unknown at this moment whether or not he had any connection to the ballistics setup for Delphi. But what we do know is that regardless, you have to imagine, if there's a potential that you have a guy accumulating CSAM, putting people in jail using his position as a ballistic forensics employee for the county or the state, you got to understand it's not outside of the realm of possibility that you got similar creeps floating around the Delphi PD, the Carroll County Sheriffs, the Indiana Metro PD, the Indiana State Police, the FBI, and all in between. It's potential. So it just goes to show you never know who you're dealing with. The badge is only a badge. That's all it is. Just like the Prof is a name I stand behind. Delphi After Dark, Rick Snay is a name Rick stands behind. We are not what we stand behind, the brand or whatever we are. We are people. And we are accountable for our own actions. And so you have to look at these people. And that's the problem with Delphi. We all know that the reason we are here is that many of us, we don't like the people. We don't like Liggett. We don't like Tobe Lesenby. We don't like some of the family. And we're going to be honest. There's people we don't like here because we question their motivations. You can't hide behind those things. I can't hide behind the prof. Can't hide behind the badge. You can't hide behind being a family member.
Let's not leave out Dan Doolin when we talk about the list of people we don't like.
We don't like Dan Doolin because who records every single tip interaction and all of this, but just so happens can't find Rick Allen's incriminating statement that he was there from 1:30 to 4 rather than from 12 to 1:30.
Isn't that just the limit? Boy, I'll tell you.
Well, what's the nexus? The nexus is 1:30 because that's when he's on camera. Isn't that odd?
Yep. Yeah, Dan Doolin, I called one time, called him the Forrest Gump of fuckery in Carroll County because it seems like whenever there's some fuckery going on, you don't have to look too far to find Dan Doolin involved.
Well, yeah, because we do remember that there's a whole other controversy he's all intertwined in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for those of you that don't know what he's talking about, we're talking about Jesse Snyder. If you haven't seen Mile Marker, look it up on Facebook. I mean, on YouTube. I had Corey Rowe on my channel once, and he's a really good dude. Thank you, Skip. I appreciate that. I do. And yes, and we don't want to leave Fran Gull out of that. Remember, I call Fran Gull Frigid Franny, and I made a comment on my channel that she is she's so cold. She's a woman with a heart so cold she makes Lady Macbeth look like the Hawk Tuah girl, and I stand by that comment.
Well, you know what I don't like about her are her unhinged decisions and bad attitude. And you know, I don't know her personally, but I'll say this: the no transparency or the no cameras in court, that alone is enough to make me not like her, because you have a case that is so contentious, the attention of the world is on this case, and you have the gall to block the people's access to what goes on in this trial when you work for the people, and this is supposed to be for the people.
Just unbelievable.
I don't know what Criminal Network is saying, but he's tripping me out of hot toi. Haute toi, girl. I like that. You got to spit on that thing, she said. Thanks for bringing the levity and the comic relief, Criminal Network. We need that. You know, that's the thing that people don't understand about Rick, is that he's a genuinely likable guy, and you do need levity. You know, I'm one who tends to lack that, and so my point of gaining balance in life is to find the moments to smile. But some people are already there, and their moments in life are to find the moments of seriousness. So we all have something balance we're trying to achieve here. But thanks for bringing the comedy and the smiles here.
I started it.
Prof and Snay, bravo, fellas. You should tag team more often. Maybe we will. Because right now, look, it's crunch time. We're dealing with people who want to lie to the entire world about the murders of 2 little girls. Who would want to do that? So we're parents here. You know, I know Skip has kids too, but I know Rick has kids. I have kids. We care about kids. Bottom line. So, well, hey, I hate to do it, but thanks everyone for coming. And Rick, any last words?
Well, I know Heather's been saying some really nice things about me, and I love Heather to death. She's one of my great mods on my channel. So thank you so much, Heather. Guys, thanks for having me out there on here. You know, I'm glad that you all came to hear our discussion tonight. Yeah, I have I have no problem coming on again, having Prof on my show again. We are going to be giving them hell, I think. And, to quote Caesar, apes together strong, so, a couple of chimps like you and me, Prof, I think, putting our differences aside and our, sizable intellects together,
If we do say
that's
so
something we
ourselves.
have that they can't offer. That's something we have that the pro, ghouls, as I call them, the pro prosecution people, they can't offer intellect because they don't have any.
The troll farm. He means the troll farm for all my listeners. Yeah. Well, thanks, Rick. I really appreciate you coming. I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for coming. I do appreciate every minute you're here, and you've been here many, so appreciate that. Can't wait to talk to you again. And thanks for your honesty. And it's needed. It's needed here. We're fighting a big battle. So,
Yes, we are.
yeah. So thanks, Rick.
Hey, thank you, sir.
Okay, good night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Snay, a legend. A legend. Rick cares about Abby and Libby, and I care about Abby and Libby, and I know that you guys care about Abby and Libby, and that is the absolute most important thing. None of this here in this societal drama matters, other than the fact that we know that these kids here don't have anyone to speak for them. Because, well, they can't speak for themselves, so they need those who can speak for them and tell their story and help to bring the eyes of the world onto them. Because bottom line is that the eyes of the world and the focus on this case is a good thing. Okay, the focus of hundreds and thousands of people on this case is the absolute best thing you could wish for, because that will cause greater accountability. It's the focus of attention is sort of like a light shining on, and you need that light, because that light shining will keep things from happening in the dark. So my point here is, we're here to spread the word about Abigail Williams and Liberty German, and about all children who suffer the consequences of brutality and crime. Because the attention that we give to these cases and these children, well, it's sort of like a magnet. It draws the attention of others. And by drawing the attention of others, the more eyes we get on this case, the better, because the less people who have something to hide and some kind of nefarious intentions will be able to get away with. And so that's why I'm so appreciative, as always, of you in the chat and you watching on the replay and all the various ways that you happen to be seeing this. Your attention on this case is what's going to allow justice to come. Now, whether it be this year, next year, or 10 years from now, we're not giving up on Abby and Libby, no matter what happens with Richard Allen, because we believe that there's more to the story, and we believe it needs to be told, and we believe that those kids don't get justice until the whole story is told. Really, in truth. Until the whole story is told, there's no justice for Libby and Abby. So whether it be this year, next year, 10 years, we believe justice will come for Libby and Abby, which means the whole story will be told. And when that whole story is told, they get peace. And I want to thank you for being here and being a part of that. Everyone in the chat, thank you for participating and being here. If you happen to be one who is watching the replay, please leave a comment down below. We really cherish the comment section. Leaving a comment, you continue the conversation, which you can't do in the chat, but you continue that conversation. And when I go to a video and there's 50 or 100 or 200 comments, it lets me know that it was well worth the time spent and that people are discussing the issues that we brought up. So thank you again to everyone in the chat. I'll leave the chat open another 10 minutes so that you guys can wind it down. But I'll get out of here. And in the meantime, I will say goodbye to everyone and a sort of a hello goodbye. So I'll start here. Lambert Co., thank you so much for being here. Good to see you. You're late. Frenchie6290, good to see you here. Sandy D, Swade Smith, Commentator Root, Heather Brown, Lisa, Woman Doin', True Grit Crime, Dick Red Shirt, Noe Amos, Swade Smith, Housebroken Hussy, True Justice, Noe Amos, I may have said, Criminal Network, Dean Johnson, Cromley Lux Corporation, Jennifer Dickerson, Ladybug, Tulane, Westy, Tammy McRae, Nobody Nothing, 1717, Rebecca Ann, 1965, Hansy Bay, Michael Osbrook, Criminal Network, Kayla, Carla Ann, Granny D, Fur Baby Daddy. Who else have I missed? Gina Bodette, Adrian Thiesing. Let me put your comment up there. All right. Who else am I missing? All right, I've gone back a ways. I'm sure there were others here earlier. I have Apophis. Let's see. Well, I'm going back pretty far and I'm going to stop because anyone else who's here, you're still here, drop your name in the chat and I'll say goodnight to you. But I'd like to say goodnight to everyone who was here and thank you for being here. JoJo, Fair Maiden Wins. There you go. Glad I didn't miss you too. Linda K. Johnson. Glad I didn't miss you. Anyhow, everyone who was here much earlier, if I missed you, I apologize. You know, I appreciate you being here. Anyhow, please hit the like, subscribe to the channel if you like this sort of discussion. We will continue to discuss. And like I always say, hug your kids, hug your wife. In case you don't know where I get that, that's my variation of the Antoine Dodson, you better hide your kids, hide your wife. They raping everybody out here. I like to turn it around and say, hug your kids, hug your wife. And those you love, spend time with those you love. We won't be here forever. And let them know now. Okay, let them know now. Spend the time with them now. So anyway, I'm letting you know now that I appreciate the value you've added to my life by getting to know all of you in the chat, by discussing with you. It's been stimulating. It's enriched my life. Glad to know many of you. There's only a handful who I wish I had never smelt or come across. But other than that, yes, Marion Foster. There you go. There you go. Marion Foster. Thank you for jumping in. See, that's what I mean. Carol. Yeah, and anyone else who is who's wanting to say hello. Party UV5. Okay, Augie. Housebroken Hussy. I may have already said hello, but you get it. Anyone else? Four Pits. Yeah, Four Pits. And anyone else who's been here, thank you so much. I'll join you in the chat in a minute. And once again, thanks for being here and enjoy your nights. All right, so we'll see you later. Peace out and God bless Abby and Libby.